Dreams have come true. Tattered Map 5? Episode 5.
We're going to tie back to last week. Move to a hot.
I've got some. All right, there we go.
There we go.
Make sure our audio is nice and solid. Hello, guys.
Hello.
All right, sorry. Where were you, special guest?
Well, a lot of what I'm going to be doing today is reading some sources to you. We're going to go with some news articles I clipped last night from the first news story from the 80s. Miami Herald, like all of these are going to be in the Miami Herald. This one's from May 28th.
Right.
All right, so let's just dive right in. Drug pilot says CIA plotting to control world by Al Messerschmitt. James Pettit, convicted drug pilot, admitted arms smuggler, has told the same story over and over and no one believes him. Embedded in his neck, he says, are tiny electronic devices put there by the CIA to control his thoughts. A federal judge heard the tale and ordered a psychiatric examination. The psychiatrist said Pettit is legally competent. The judge ordered a CAT scan, a sophisticated X-ray, of Pettit's neck. The test found nothing. When a Dade Circuit judge heard the story, he thought Pettit was trying to talk his way out of an arson charge. The judge ordered new X-rays when Pettit offered to accept a 30-year jail sentence if they turned up nothing. To the surprise of the judge, the prosecutor, and even Pettit's attorney, the newest tests from Jackson Memorial Hospital showed two foreign objects in Pettit's neck. Circuit Judge Howard Gross has ordered exploratory surgery to find out what they are. Thoughts that don't belong to me keep appearing, said Pettit during an interview in the Dade County Jail. The only problem I'm having is getting the implants exposed. Up until the newest X-rays, there was nothing to give credence to his story, said Pettit's latest attorney, Roy Gelber. I feel now that there's some objective proof of what he was saying. It's the kind of tale that could become a bestseller, a spy thriller, with drug smugglers' airplanes crashing into flames, organized crime, murders, and mind control by the CIA. Sitting in a tiny interview room in the jail, Pettit holds up one, then two X-rays. Each is about the size of a sheet of typing paper. See the circled areas, he says? See that thing that looks like a little bottle? That, my friend, is an implant. They're not metal, they're quartz. They're like tiny radio receivers. I think they were going to use me in a program to assassinate someone, Pettit says. I can't prove the CIA put them in there, but there is no way any other government agency has the power to do that. You think about it. I can't be the only one implanted. Physically, James Pettit, 39, is a wreck. Burnham Pettit was what federal drug agents called him because of the many planes he crashed during his brief career as a drug pilot. Pettit's latest crash in April '82, a Lockheed Lodestar loaded with Quaaludes, was the worst. When the plane exploded in a Colombian pasture, he was burned over 54% of his body. 8 days later, he was admitted to the burn center of the U.S. Army Institute of Surgical Research at the Brooke Medical Center in San Antonio. Hospital spokesman Ray Derry confirmed that Pettit was treated by two doctors at the center until July 2nd, 1982. Pettit said that while he was at the burn center, the implants were put in his neck, face, arms, and ears. Now, guys, this first article is sort of long. The others aren't. So, going back. 3 times during the surgery, I left my body and watched the operation, said Pettit, a believer in astral projection who once listed his occupation as parapsychologist.
Whoa.
The crash left him badly scarred. He wears long-sleeve shirts to cover the shriveled baby pink skin on his arms. His nose was rebuilt, but one nostril is larger than the other. His battered face is covered with a dark, heavy beard.
Whoa.
The fingers on his right hand stop at the knuckles. They were lost in an earlier fire. The fingers on his left hand are bent back. The CIA program was called Operation Crystal Ball, Pettit says, and he found top-secret documents on it in a Key West dumpster in the mid-'60s. They came from a safety deposit box that was broken into at the former Key West National Bank, he says. The documents described a CIA plan to take over the world's judicial and political systems through mind control by the year 2000, Pettit says. So let's take a break because we still got a little bit of this article to go.
Yeah.
So already,
I can't get over the physical description of James.
yeah.
In that photo right there, that's a kind of this guy has been torn apart.
Yes, absolutely, right? And also his history. Before he's in this, what's he into? Something we were talking about earlier. He's into cults, sort of. Like he's into parapsychology.
Yeah.
He's into, in the late 70s, the New
Alternative
Age
ways
movement.
of thinking.
The absolute alternative ways of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, parapsychology, like, wonder if there's any links to him with the Stanford Research Institute. Like, I haven't found any. I just found out this case last night.
But there'd have to be. You'd think. I mean, you'd think for sure. This Pettit dude, yeah, this story is insane. The government. So, what else do we know about the things that were in his body?
Well, here, let's get to it.
Okay.
Right, because it's like I said, it's a relatively short way that we're going to start off. It's just I wanted to get this whole article read. I think it's important.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Continuing. The crystal ball routine I'll never be able to prove, he says. But his discovery of the documents is one reason the CIA focused on him, says Pettit. The other reason was his search to find out why his older brother, Herschel Neal Pettit, died in the Gulf of Mexico in 1978. Pettit says his brother was a, quote, straight arrow, and he couldn't believe reports that the elder Pettit had committed suicide aboard a boat loaded with pot. I think he was working for the CIA or the DEA, Pettit says. I went to New Orleans. I talked to an organized crime family. I gave them a list of names. CIA. Don't fool with it, they told me. I put it all together in my head, smuggling. CIA connected. Well, I mean, New Orleans.
Yeah. So much shit moves through these areas. You know what I mean? And
James Pettit is obsessed by thoughts that the CIA can control him. In a deposition, Pettit asked his ex-attorney in federal court, Kathy Hamilton, if she was working for the agency. Wow. No, she said, but the CIA once offered her a job as she was graduating from college. Pettit says Hamilton's fidgeting with her hair and with cigarettes were triggering mechanisms to control his mind.
Whoa.
In motions filed in court, Pettit says his former attorney, Assistant Public Defender James Webb, once showed up in court wearing a Duke University ring. The year on the ring wasn't the year of Webb's graduation, a tip-off that Webb was working for the CIA, says Pettit. I accused him of it. Webb said there's no truth to the accusation.
Huh. That is weird. Why would you have a class? Why would you...
This is his claim.
Yeah.
But the federal jury that convicted him of drug smuggling in '83 was controlled by the CIA, says Pettit. Defense attorney Hamilton is convinced that Pettit is linked to the agency. I'll tell you this, she says. Jim Pettit has worked for the CIA. That has been confirmed. Pettit has told me he worked for the CIA. In addition, Charles Marty has told me he worked for the CIA, that he had Pettit checked out, that it was confirmed. Marty, a co-defendant in the federal drug case, was to have been a co-pilot on a drug flight with Pettit. In the middle of that trial, Marty's defense attorney, Alexander Martoni, asked for a hearing out of the presence of the jurors because he had learned that Marty had met secretly with the DEA and CIA. The CIA tried to get the charges dismissed because of the CIA connection with my client, Martone told the U.S. District Judge, Jose Gonzalez. There's letters in their files. I have direct confirmation that James Pettit is flown for the CIA, said Martone. Jim Pettit needs some definite help. The government owes him that. He's been impaired as a result of those flights. The U.S. government has never taken responsibility for what happened to Jim Pettit. James Pettit says he was a good guy, not a lawbreaker. He said he flew drug missions outside the United States to tip off law enforcement authorities that he scuttled plane loads of pot, called the cops, and never landed a single load in this country. It's no crime to haul dope outside the States, he says. Pettit said he went through $50,000 harassing drug dealers in Texas and Florida. He says he tipped an FBI agent named Ty Cobb about drug loads coming into the Miami area. The FBI says Cobb has been transferred, but won't say to where. Whoa. Right? Pettit says he tipped former DEA agent Randy Beasley. Not so, says Beasley, the undercover agent in Operation Screamer and 84 defendant series of busts in '83. So they're like, no, we don't know this guy. He didn't work for us. But this follows the pattern of them recruiting people to work outside the government for them. and it follows the pattern that the DEA was operating in to destroy drug networks.
Everything
even
we
though
talked
they
about, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same patterns of recruiting and manipulating your recruit, and then doing your best to make that motherfucker like be the pimp to that motherfucker too. Like you can tell that this is it's the same MO. He definitely worked for the CIA. Like
it seems that way to me.
Yeah, definitely did. I agree with what they're
So continuing. Hold on, let me see. Pettit tried to, quote, tried to go to Cobb, says Beasley, but Pettit was the target of the Operation Screamer probe at the time. The guy is not reliable enough to be an informant. The guy's a real character. He kept us entertained. The CIA, that only came up after he was arrested. Because why would you bring it up beforehand? Pettit was charged in Operation Screamer with plotting to smuggle 2 plane loads of pot into Florida in August '81. He allegedly attended a series of meetings and developed a landing code for the flights. Pettit flew a DC-3 to Colombia, but instead of returning to Lake Okeechobee with pot, he landed at the Treasury Cay in the Bahamas. Pettit says he never intended to bring the marijuana to Florida, but Assistant U.S. Attorney Stephen LeClaire told the jurors in Judge Gonzalez's court that a mix-up in signals, not Pettit, forced the landing in the Bahamas. So there's your background on this guy, right?
It sounds like he was set up on that pot thing, and maybe he really didn't mean to go to the Bahamas.
Well, during this whole period, right, there's so much intrigue happening in the Bahamas and them attempting to set up through like Project Nassau and the remnants of Project Nassau. They were going to set up an independent libertarian country as a tax haven.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And Mitch Warbell was heavily associated with it. CBS was going to back it for the rights to broadcast it as it happened.
Whoa.
So there was a lot of intrigue during that time period, especially associated with importing marijuana.
Yeah.
Which is something we had talked about earlier about how they were like, we don't think of it now, but then, no, that was big business, man. Because there were so many narcs everywhere in the U.S., you couldn't run big grow ops reasonably like you could south of the border.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing.
It's fascinating to me the concept of a corporate
go ahead.
like a corporate libertarian free market, free weed fucking country.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that failed, and what happens immediately afterward, 80 to 83, the cocaine coup in Bolivia where the Nazis do it. They just take over a country and start doing it.
Yeah.
They're just reaping the funds off of all this new cocaine. So, continuing. Before Pettit's federal trial, defense attorney Hamilton asked Gonzalez to order a psychiatric test and a CAT scan of Pettit's head. Dr. Charles Mutter reported that Pettit was competent to stand trial and added, "It is my opinion that this individual is attempting to contrive a story to evade further legal proceedings. Although his alleged beliefs would represent a psychotic delusion, there is nothing else in the mental status exam that is consistent with mental illness." So, either he's lying or he's telling the truth, but he's not crazy. The CAT scan at Jackson Memorial found nothing. Pettit didn't testify. He refused to cooperate with Hamilton. The attorney said nothing about the CIA or implants. The jury convicted Pettit. Gonzalez ordered a 15-year prison sentence, one of the stiffest in Operation Screamer cases. Pettit's extensive criminal record, he has served several prison terms, prompted the judge to order the tough sentence, Hamilton says. Keep in mind, they were experimenting on prisoners all throughout the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Because some of the prisons would be classed as hospitals.
Well, and once you get that kind of free, you can do whatever the fuck you want to a federal prisoner.
Yeah.
As far as the, I mean, you could.
Yeah,
it's easier to do anything to their sheet.
Exactly.
Make it seem like anything. I mean, we were talking about that earlier with like implants and like people receiving them in fucking prison. Like, how many people went through diagnostics, had what they thought was a tumor removed, and came out with a fucking BB-sized piezo pickup in their fucking
exactly.
On their bones.
So, yeah, Pettit's extensive criminal record, he had served several prison terms, prompted the judge to order the tough sentence, Hamilton says. Now Pettit awaits trial in circuit court, accused of setting fire to his girlfriend's house after barricading himself inside when the DEA agent Beasley tried to arrest him. For nearly 6 hours in mid-June 1983, Pettit refused to leave the house at 5929 Southwest 16th Terrace. The DEA called a Metro-Dade SWAT team. Pettit called TV reporters.
Whoa.
Yeah, he called the TV because he was afraid they were going to murder him, and they probably tried to set fire to the house.
It sounds like it. Well, if you can control the dude's body at this point, they'd make him fucking explode
Exactly.
in whatever manner.
Well, and we're going to get to that on the next case that we talk about.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, during the standoff, Pettit allegedly tossed lighted containers of paint thinner from the house. Pettit said he didn't set the fire in the bedroom that caused $60,000 in damage. Who set the fire, he says? That I don't know. Whatever set that fire came through the west bedroom window. I thought it was a tear gas canister. Sounds something like, Waco?
Yeah, a lot like Waco. Well, you can't for any listeners out there, you can't put like you can't launch a tear gas canister into like a closed room with no ventilation like that. It'll fucking catch fire.
Yes.
It will explode.
So, in court deposition, there is no mention of tear gas. The case was scheduled for trial before Judge Gross last week. The day the trial was to begin, hospital officials responding to a court order brought copies of the federally ordered x-rays to court. Pettit, defense attorney Gelber, and prosecutor Phil Maniotti huddled in the jury room with Dr. Robert M. Quincer of Jackson's radiology department to examine the x-rays. The x-rays showed the top of Pettit's head, but didn't show the neck area behind his ear, which is where he was talking about. Pettit, who is representing himself with Gelber as co-counsel, offered to plead no contest to the arson charge and accept a 30-year sentence if another set of x-rays showed nothing. Judge Gross sent Pettit back to the hospital. When Dr. Quincer returned with the newest test, he told the judge that something unexplainable is in Pettit's neck. And when they say neck, they mean right back here.
At like really
right behind,
bone.
Yeah, exactly. That's really easy to get to.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Because he's so scarred, there's not going to be any reasonable indicator of incision.
Or like topographical abnormality.
He had
nobody's
a couple pieces. We'll get to it, but he had a couple pieces of buckshot in his neck too, and he said, "No, that's buckshot from when I was 15."
Whoa! This dude's been beat the fuck up.
Yeah, which makes it hard to look at him and say this is a place where an incision might have been.
Yeah.
So, I thought he was just fabricating a story to beat the charges, said Gross. The x-rays give me something to think about. Until the radiologist came in, I thought it was nonsense, said Maniatti. I don't know what those two things are. The radiologist said it could be metal from an accident. It's certainly worth checking into, but it has nothing to do with this case. Tuesday, Gross ordered the hospital staff to perform an operation to determine what is in Pettit's neck. Now, this is where it gets truly weird. Okay, so go over to our next article. We'll just go ahead and close those two out. X-ray surgery failed to find bug in man. That's a very misleading headline. It's from the Miami Herald, 1984, June 9th. The first CIA operation in Jackson Memorial Hospital history ended in disappointment Friday for James Pettit. It was just after 10 a.m. when Pettit, 39, convicted drug pilot, accused arsonist, and firm believer that the Central Intelligence Agency has planted electronic thought control devices in his skull, rolled into Ward D at Jackson in a wheelchair and leg irons. He was clutching a court order for the surgery that would prove his claim, ease his mind, and maybe cut his prison time. I'm not going to let them put me to sleep, he said warily. Jackson's a damn government hospital. He needn't have worried. After reviewing new x-rays taken Friday, the Jackson physician scheduled to do the exploratory surgery and find out just what was in Pettit's head refused to operate above the neck. I'm not touching that head, said Jackson professor of surgery, Gerardo Gomez. He did take out a lump of scar tissue out of Pettit's back, though, while two lawyers, 3 nurses, another doctor, 2 policemen, 1 newsman, and sundry security guards watched. Pettit said the lump hurt him when he was in the company of a certain person.
Weird.
As the herd of spectators watched, Gomez dissected the blob of tissue, the color and texture of a tiny brain. It contained scar tissue. Pettit demanded Gomez remove lumps from his scarred arms. Gomez refused. He says it could be dangerous and was uncalled for since there was nothing indicated on the x-rays. It's getting a little unreasonable. Cut here, cut there, just exploring for what he says. I don't think any doctor would go for that, Gomez says. Now, I want to note, The judge told him he had to.
Yeah, you have to.
And he's saying, no, I'm not gonna.
Whoa.
So yeah, it failed to find a bug because they didn't go check.
They didn't look.
I want those things that look like bottles taken out of my head. Any refusal by Jackson Memorial Hospital to follow this court order constitutes, in my opinion, collusion with the CIA, says Pettit, holding the folded order from Circuit Judge Howard Gross, a senior surgical resident Michael Kotler sewing his back up. Tell me, doctor, do you work for the CIA? What are you talking about, Gomez said, laughing uneasily, looking confused. I don't work for the government. I don't think any surgeon in their right mind is going to do the surgery based on x-rays that show nothing, Gomez said.
Bullshit.
Gomez asked someone to call Judge Gross, whose order required the surgery. Gross, however, had gone for the weekend and couldn't resolve the issue until Monday, Assistant State Attorney Phil Maniatti said. Friday's medical first evolved through Pettit's steadfast assertion about CIA involvement, tests which proved him sane and competent to stand trial, and the ambiguous results of previous x-rays. The story began in 1982 when Pettit crashed an airplane loaded with Quaaludes. He was horribly burned and underwent surgery at the Brooke Medical Center in San Antonio. There, he contends a government doctor working for the CIA implanted electronic mind control devices in his head. Pettit, already convicted and sentenced to 15 years on a federal drug charge, is on trial again for an arson charge which alleges he tried to burn down his girlfriend Dade's house in 1983 while resisting federal arrest. During the trial, Pettit said he agreed to plead no contest to the arson charge and accept a 30-year sentence if the judge would order new x-rays. Gross agreed, Pettit said, with the understanding that if the x-rays showed something, surgery would follow. To everyone's astonishment, except perhaps Pettit's, the new x-rays showed something in Pettit's neck. Judge Gross ordered exploratory surgery. I don't know what's in there, said Maniatti, chief of the arson division, before Pettit arrived on Friday, but whatever it isn't a defense for arson. I thought he was off the wall until x-rays actually showed there was something in there, Pettit's attorney Roy Gelbert said as he stood at the Ward D admitting desk. What showed up on Friday's x-rays, Pettit said, were fragments of shotgun pellets in the base of his neck from a youthful encounter. Also showing up were, quote, little bottle-shaped things that appeared in the upper jaw. Right? Sitting in a white surgical gown with blue designs in the crowded viewing room, Pettit drew a circle around a shadowy shape on the jaw of the x-ray with a grease pencil. See that, he said? Air surrounded by bones, said Jackson radiologist Dr. Eward Russell. I want it known that the doctors at Hospital Memorial area refused to operate on that suspicious area, Pettit says. Mr. Pettit wants the court order enforced, Gelbert said. He said they would try again in court. Since I took this case, I've had 7 people come to the office asking if I can help them with similar problems, Gelbert said. One said was John Kennedy's girlfriend and the FBI had put transmitters in her head so she wouldn't get JFK in trouble. Everybody wants to know what those things are in his head.
Holy shit.
So now the doctor's not going to operate. The doctor at our surgical research hospital? No, that was San Antonio. But regardless, at a state hospital.
At a state hospital.
Right? Under court order. Just refuses. So what does the judge do? This is from Miami Herald, August 20th, 1984. So about a month and a half, 2 months later. Though his tale evokes the best of the spy novel genre, convicted drug pilot and admitted arms smuggler James Pettit is having trouble selling his story to a judge. Pettit, who says the CIA implanted in his neck tiny electronic devices aimed at controlling his thoughts, recently was sentenced to 15 years for arson by Circuit Judge Howard Gross after physicians who performed a court-ordered examination of Pettit could find no evidence the devices existed. We went to court, and the judge had the physician there, said Pettit's attorney Roy Gelbert. Gross, after hearing the results of the examination, rejected an earlier deal under which Pettit had agreed to plead no contest to the arson charge and accept a 30-year sentence if Gross ordered an examination and the results were negative. He was charged with setting fire to his girlfriend's house in 1983. Gross, however, declined to sentence Pettit to a 15-year sentence to be served concurrently with the 15-year term Pettit already is serving for a federal drug charge. Jim was very unhappy, Gelbert said, and is appealing the judge's decision. And that's how that played out. They said, okay, we're not actually giving you any more time. Shut up.
And they just that is insane.
Yeah.
What happens to James Pettit?
I couldn't find anything. The little bit of lore that I heard is that once he got out, he dropped off. And there was no finding him, which is the same thing that happened to the person that we'll be talking about next. But I figured we could take a minute before we get to this fellow, Luis Angel Castillo.
Oh, whoa. So, with Pettit, though, I mean, anything on his modern-day whereabouts?
I couldn't find anything.
Passed away?
I found most of this last night while
disappeared?
cross-referencing, and I couldn't find anything.
I know I've heard that last name a lot.
Yeah.
That's genuinely jaw-dropping. The fact that he had to flaunt a court order.
Mm-hmm.
That's a slick motherfucker, too. I bet you a couple of different times they kind of hit the explode button on him as a project.
Yeah.
And it didn't take.
Well, like if
This
you're
motherfucker
wondering
just
how
kept
it works, there's two concepts that are talked about a lot in conspiracy circles. I can't provide much reference right here. I can look forward to me trying to provide some for you, but they're called electronic dissolution of memory and radio hypnotic intracerebral control or conditioning. Electronic dissolution of memory, EDOM. Basically, the concept behind it is that they can hit you with a particular radio wave that causes the human body to massively increase its production of acetylcholine.
Oh.
And when that happens, you stop being capable of perceiving time functionally. You got me?
You get time distortion like a mother.
Beyond, and that also, like say with DMT,
Yeah.
ruins your ability to remember.
Yeah.
So it's like they can radio DMT hit you. I mean, you don't have the hallucinations as I understand it, but it's more
But
like what
you
we used to call
massive-
being Xanax gassed.
Yeah, massive time distortion.
Massive time distortion to the point that your memory on the subject is functionally useless. So that's sort of like the Men in Black flasher,
Yeah.
except instead of a flasher, it's a radio signal.
Fucking insane. So
And if a person had these, like he's talked about them being quartz chips. You've heard of like Lucille Ball saying she could pick up radio reception in her teeth. It had to do with the silver, not universally, but almost universally, with silver amalgam fillings. But if you have a piece of crystal quartz that you know is tuned to a certain frequency, you could cement it in while doing oral surgery on someone. It'll bone conduct and they'll hear it like a speaker in their head. It's like the thing in the movie Real Genius with Val Kilmer.
yeah.
Right? And if you did that, you wouldn't need a power pack or anything. You just need them to be within range of your radio transmission. And if it's on a frequency that doesn't interfere with commercial transmission, nobody's ever going to look for it.
I'm still taken aback by just the narrative imagery of James Pettit as and he's talked to by the medical industry as if he is a corpse hanging from the scaffold. He's already been hung already. He's already dead.
Yeah.
And they're like, why is he? But he's got a secret hidden in him, and he knows it.
Well, at our next guy, this guy has it even worse.
It's still there, just taunting them.
The next story's even crazier.
Damn.
But I wanted to say the other one, radio hypnotic intracerebral conditioning, RHIC, RHIC,
Yeah.
is the way it would function basically is one, they'd probably have to beat the shit out of you quite a few times to associate certain things with those places. You got me? Like the place he said really hurt that he had them cut out was probably associated, because he associated it with a certain person, with trauma conditioning associated with the person who hypnotized him, or someone that hypnotist gave control to.
Dead broke him old school style like a horse.
Dead broke him like a damn horse,
Beat him
right?
with a rod.
Right.
Until he was conditioned to somebody commanding him.
Well, and the other thing is, because he's a guy with so much shrapnel and shit in his body, he's a perfect subject to hide little bitty quartz transceivers in that they can do the same thing. So now, because if it fires together, it wires together, if they hit him with something from radio with the quartz, and it hits that quartz, right, and it vibrates and he feels it in that spot, it automatically subconsciously creates the association, which is going to be astoundingly strong.
Yeah.
You know, like if you had a feeling in your back that always was associated, at least at one point, with you getting the shit beat out of you, you'd flinch. It's like co-opting the flinch response.
Oh, look at his family-related shoulder cramp.
Yeah.
I know exactly. Yeah, that's okay. They know they can trigger that.
They know they can trigger it, and once again, we're talking about like an ancient technology way of doing this.
Yeah,
You got me.
But I mean,
Yeah, like a real Stone Age type operating procedure that they're functionally doing to accomplish this. Whereas today, they'd probably just do it with focused radio waves. Now, I know that's crazy, but if you're wanting to understand what people are talking about with that's the theory behind it. Oh, sorry, I'm just over here looking at Merc.
I know Lucille Ball was picking up radio signals in her fillings.
Oh, yeah, that headline is basically a straight up lie. Okay, let me get back to this because we're going to get on to our next guy, Luis Angel Castillo. So this is from Sacramento Bee, April 20th, 1967. Almost all these are going to be around April 20th. I want you to get an idea of how wide this went. This is a UPI report. I found about 50 of them, and they're all carbon copy edits of this, which is the biggest one I found. Out of Manila, UPI. The Philippine National Bureau of Investigation said today it has arrested an American who claims under truth serum he took part of an asserted assassination plot against the late President JFK. The NBI is the Nicaraguan, or Philippine, National Bureau of Investigation. The NBI identified the man as Luis Angel Castillo, 24, a native of Puerto Rico. The NBI said Castillo is a Cuban-trained communist agent sent to the Philippines to contact communist hook guerrillas. Cuban-trained. Not all of our anti-Castro guys were on our side. We had anti-Castro spies within Castro's command.
Okay.
You got me?
Yeah.
Like we had agents implanted.
We had infiltrators.
It's part of how Klaus Barbie and E. Howard Hunt hunted down Che Guevara.
Yeah,
it's like that. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
An NBI report said Castillo admitted while under truth serum and during hypnotic grilling that he was in Dallas at the time of the assassination and had been given a rifle by an unidentified man and told to shoot a man in an open car during a motorcade. The report said Castillo did not use the rifle because he heard that somebody else had already shot the man in the open car. He tried to remember the man who shot the president, and he just knew him as Joe.
Whoa.
The report said Castillo claimed there were 15 other men stationed along the motorcade route. The Castillo appeared before newsmen in the Manila NBI office and gave evasive answers to most questions. Asked if he was involved in an assassination plot, Castillo replied, "I don't want to answer that question." He said he did not know anyone named Lee Harvey Oswald, but did not recall being in Dallas the day of Kennedy's assassination.
Who do you think John was?
Joe. I am not. I don't know, but it might be a guy that they also call. Or who do I think Joe was? I'm sorry. I think Joe was.
I think it was Lee
Maybe a guy named Lucien Sarti. Or maybe a guy using Lucien Sarti's name as a fuck you to him.
Whoa.
Which is a thing that happens, especially...
That's assassination rat beef material.
No, it works that way. Like people on opposite sides of a political struggle who utilize assassins, their assassins will also often utilize the cover identity while they're doing the job of an assassin on the other side to muddy the waters. So I think that there's a high likelihood it was a guy named Lucien Sarti.
Batman hush shit.
But okay, so this next one is from the London Evening Standard. That's how wide this story went. Philippines police produced at a press conference here today a 24-year-old Puerto Rican who they think could have been involved in the assassination of President Kennedy. They said that while under the influence of a truth serum, Luis Angel Castillo said that he was one of a group of about 15 men assigned to kill, quote, the president. He was given a rifle and put in a high building with instructions to shoot. He had said that another man had dismantled his rifle after they heard that somebody called Joe had already got the man. Then he had driven to the main city airport and was flown to Chicago. Now, disassembled the rifle. You need to understand, I know a bit about firearms technology historically. What they call a takedown rifle, which can be disassembled and put in, say, a bowling bag.
Yeah.
Right? Which even involves a very short barrel.
Yeah.
Right? Those were sort of high tech. right? Like custom gunsmiths, you didn't just go to the store and buy
That's
one.
military or like war profiteer shit.
It is, or it's something that you went to a custom gunsmith who was known and said, "I want this," and they built it for you.
Whoa, okay, gotcha.
Which is something that there's a lot of that in the U.S. Like that's a thing to understand too, guys. Is that like if you're not from the U.S. or even if you're just from a very urban part of the U.S., there are thousands, and have been the whole time, thousands of gunsmiths capable of doing that work in the private industry who you could just go to and get a one-off rifle made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a problem. They've got a license to manufacture. They stamp it with their name, their address, and a serial number and move on. Unless you pay them not to.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and if, you know, like anyone, if they're willing to take the risk to commit a crime, they will. And if the CIA or somebody
assures them that they won't be caught up in litigation, they probably would.
Right. So
especially if they have, and I've found too in that circle, you typically have people who are doing that are ex-military. I've noticed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like that's very common because there's such a crossover between military people and gun aficionados.
Well, and just if you wanted to really even up to now, if you want to, if you come from an impoverished background and you want to be an engineer,
yeah,
that's the place to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if you want to make something, if you want to craft guns, if you want to be a gunsmith,
dude, you can, and you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read this one, and I'm just gonna click through a few of the other ones because they all basically have the same information. The other long one I read and this one have the most information. So the rest basically have the same stuff in different words. From AP and UPI, this is from the Indianapolis Star, 1967, April 22nd. Manila. The Philippine National Bureau of Investigation reported yesterday it had arrested a 24-year-old Puerto Rican-born American who it said told authorities he took part in an assassination plot against President John F. Kennedy. An NBI investigation report shown to the newsmen stated that Luis Angel Castillo had admitted under the influence of truth serum that he was in Dallas at the time of the assassination and had been given a rifle by an unidentified man and told to shoot at a man in an open car during a motorcade. Excuse me. According to the report, Castillo said there were about 15 other plotters stationed along the motorcade route. He was quoted as saying he was not able to use the rifle because he heard that somebody else had already shot the man in the open car. He tried to remember the man who shot the president, and he just knew him as Joe.
Wow.
The NBI said Castillo was a Cuban-trained communist agent sent to the Philippines to contact communist hook guerrillas. He is being held on a charge of illegally entering the Philippines. Castillo appeared before newsmen at the NBI office yesterday and gave evasive and vague answers to most of their questions. He was asked several times whether he was involved in an assassination plot against Mr. Kennedy, and he first replied, "I don't want to answer that question." Later, he told newsmen, "If the records show it, then I must have said it." Asked whether he knew Lee Harvey Oswald, Castillo replied no. He said he remembered being in Dallas at the day of the assassination, November 22nd, 1963, but that I could only remember I was taking pictures of whom I don't remember, and how I got there and how I got out I also don't remember.
What?
The NBI said Castillo had switched identities with a Filipino in the United States who was facing deportation. It said Castillo arrived in Manila February 2nd and was arrested a month later. The NBI said Castillo admitted having contacted top communist hook leaders in the Philippines before his arrest. Reports in Sunday morning newspapers said Castillo was seeking asylum in this country because "I'm afraid to go anywhere. I'm as good as dead now."
Huh.
Efforts to gain further interviews with Castillo were blocked by NBI officials who said additional exposure to the press might hamper their investigation. The Manila Times reported Castillo had admitted to NBI investigators that he'd gone to Dallas, met an unidentified man who took a dismantled rifle out of a bowling bag, put it together, and gave it to the Puerto Rican. Castillo added that he had received instructions in Dallas through a woman of German descent who he identified as Miss Joel, the Times reported.
Huh.
NBI officials said Joel, Jole. NBI officials said efforts were being made here and abroad to check Castillo's story. They added that doctors who have examined him found him normal, the Times reported. It said Castillo was not able to explain how he got back from Cuba to Dallas and back. He said that when he was put into a trance and when I woke up, I was already in Cuba. The newspaper described his condition as confused and jumbled.
Huh.
The Puerto Rican was quoted as saying he had been a private in the Segunda Organized Defensiva in Santiago, Cuba, when he was drafted for spy training in a special group called CID or SID. He claimed he was arrested in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1965 after assuming a false identity and was then deported to the Philippines.
Huh. What?
Which would be a way to insert him with somebody else's identity.
Yeah.
So we've also got it in the El Paso Times. Nothing here is really telling us anything new, right? We've got it here in the Indianapolis Star again. And how... I want to say, yeah, but by the end of the month, he's being denied visitors. This is also in the New York Daily News. Okay. Then we get to the end of that year, November 28th. The Philippine National Bureau of Investigation said it is still holding a 24-year-old. This is from the Albuquerque Journal. The Philippine National Bureau of Investigation said it is still holding a 24-year-old Puerto Rican who the Bureau maintains has admitted participation in an assassination plot against the late President Kennedy. The NBI has also identified the suspect, Luis Angel Castillo, as a Cuban-trained communist agent who came to the Philippines to establish contact with local communists. Castillo was arrested by New Mexico State Police near Edgewood last October 22nd for failure to possess a registration card for a car and was released to U.S. immigration authorities 3 days later.
Whoa.
Last April, when it was reported that Castillo had been arrested in the Philippines, Justice of the Peace Elmer Bassett told UPI about a hearing he held for the man after his October arrest. He was as nervous as a cat in a creamery, Bassett said. Maybe I shouldn't use those words, but he sure was nervous. Castillo arrived in Manila by commercial plane February 2nd and used the passport of a Filipino who was facing deportation from the U.S. for overstaying, according to the NBI. He was arrested March 2nd, has since remained in NBI custody on charges of illegally entering the country. We're still continuing with our investigation, an NBI official said. We will repatriate him as soon as it is completed. It will depend on the developments.
Huh.
Asked whether there have been any new developments on the Castillo's alleged role in the Kennedy's assassination plot, the official said, "We're not principally concerned about that." Oh, let me find this. "We're more concerned on how his presence here affects the Philippines." The official said as far as he knew, U.S. agencies have not asked for the NBI investigation report on Castillo. "Perhaps they're also waiting for us to complete our investigation," he said. The NBI showed newsmen a copy of its investigation report saying that Castillo has admitted while under the influence of truth serum and during hypnotic grilling that he had been given a rifle by an unidentified man and told to shoot a man in an open motorcade. And at this point, it just... Same. So this is where we get to the story dropping off in the papers, but picking up thanks to a fellow named Walter Bowarts. Oh, boo. Where's the zoom on this thing?
Up right there. Boom.
There we go. So,
Walter Howard Kirby?
Born Walter Howard Kirby in Omaha, Nebraska, he was adopted by Walter and Fenna Bowart. Raised in Enid, Oklahoma, he won a McMahon Scholarship in Journalism to the University of Oklahoma. In the early 60s, Bowart moved to New York to pursue his interest in painting. There he met his first wife, Linda Dugmore, daughter of abstract expressionist Edward Dugmore, and had his first son, Wolf. Now, one thing I would say, note the almost immediate connection to expressionistic art, which we know the CIA was funding during the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
a counter to hyperrealism.
Joined a New York art scene. You know what I mean? Like the art scene of that time.
So in 65, Bowart, along with Ishmael Reed, who named the paper, Sherry Needham, Alan Katzman, and Dan Ratner founded the East Village Other, or EVO. Evo offered a newsprint medium for the rants, artwork, poetry, and comics of such late 60s icons as Timothy Leary, Allen Ginsberg, Abby Hoffman, Robert Crumb, Marshall McLuhan, Spain Rodriguez, and the Fugs. Remember the Fugs? Bass player is the guy who wrote that book on the process in Manson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, weird connection, right?
Yeah.
Through his connection with ex-Harvard professor Timothy Leary, Walter met his second wife, Peggy Hitchcock. They moved to Tucson, Arizona in '68, where Bowen founded Omen Press, a publishing house for metaphysical books. Among other books, Omen Press published This is the New Age in Person by Sufi Sam, for which Bowen wrote the foreword. They had 2 daughters. In '73, he reconnected with his biological parents, Thomas J. Kirby and Patricia J. Dooley, and discovered he had 3 younger sisters. Whoa. And he later published various articles under the names of his biological parents. Oh. And during this period, he wrote this book. It's called Operation Mind Control. It was published in Dell in '78, also published by Fontana in England in '78.
Okay.
That version has some slight differences to it that basically have to do with the removal of names. So I'm going to use the Dell version today.
Okay. Just so we have that.
It had a foreword by Manchurian candidate author Richard Condon. Right? It's a 317-page investigative report into government mind control through the use of drugs such as LSD, behavior modification, hypnosis, and other psychoweapons. So, that gives you an idea of the guy who wrote it, right? The book starts off with a story that comes out of Minot, North Dakota, about a mind control program. That's not the one we're going to today. We will get to it.
Okay, cool.
Right?
Yeah.
This is a source for me. It's not exactly a source that I'm like everything in it's right. I don't know Walter Bowarts, and I don't know his motivations. And from some of the things I've read, he might also be a useful agent.
Yeah.
But everything that I have been able to research about it has checked out. So it makes for an interesting story. And we're going to go with chapter 12 today, The 4 Faces of a Zombie. And before we get into this heavy shit, I need one of these.
Oh, yeah, get down.
Because when you hear about hypnotic mind control programming, guys, you're about to hear how it works top to bottom, inside and out.
Really? This book sounds like a must-read.
It really is. If anybody needs a copy of it, I'm sure I can point you toward a PDF online.
I'm taken aback again by the, this many episodes into the Tattered Map, it really does seem like they found multiple ways to control individuals.
Yeah.
And by control, I mean you do things that they want.
And the justification being, well, our enemies are somehow worse than this. And guys, I would say,
I don't know.
I would say that there comes a level that you reach that no matter what sort of math you apply, you're still so damn bad that it's not acceptable. And I'm somebody who grew up in the Cold War, I'm somebody who grew up in an era totally worried all the time about them nuking the Air Force base that was 10 miles outside of where I lived.
Yeah, that would be frightening. That would be fucking freaky.
Yeah, and that was the thing that they really pushed on us was this type of mindset. So let's get started over here. We're going to go through this whole chapter. We're doing a long show today, right?
Yep.
We've been up about an hour. We've covered 2 things. We're gonna. This is gonna go a bit.
2 interesting potential. Well, you know what I mean, like sleeper agents, Manchurian candidates.
So, on March 2nd, 1967, 24-year-old Luis Angel Castillo was arrested by the Philippine National Bureau of Investigation on suspicion of conspiring to assassinate President Ferdinand Marcos in Manila. They thought he was here to kill their president. That was what he was arrested on. What he was arrested on suspicion on. They said, keep in mind, this book comes out in '78, like 11 years later, and it goes into his investigation, people he talked to, right?
He was arrested for suspicion of trying to kill their president.
Yes. Castillo told the NBI, both under his hypnosis and truth serum, and also in a normal state, that he had been hypnotized to kill a man riding in an open car. Although Castillo did not know the identity of his target, the scene of his supposed hit was in Dallas, Texas. The date was November 22nd, 1963. After revealing this information, Castillo asked for political asylum in Manila. He was quoted in the Manila Times as saying, "I'm afraid to go anywhere now. I'm as good as dead now. I'm afraid to go anywhere anyway. I'm as good as dead now." "I don't know how I got into Dallas and how I got out," Castillo told reporters, "but I am sure I did not carry a gun." The Manila Times story reported that Castillo had arrived in Manila carrying a Philippine passport, which identified him as Antonio Reyes Elorriaga, a returning resident who had been expelled from America for overstaying his visa and stealing a car. While in the U.S., Castillo had traveled under the aliases Angelo Rodriguez, Razo Hernandez, Mario Rodriguez, Ignacio Gonzalez Gradea, and Antonio Elorriaga. Castillo told investigators that a woman with a German accent, a Miss Krebs, had given him his initial instructions in Dallas. According to Castillo, she was one of many individuals who worked on him to place him in a deep hypnotic trance for the Kennedy job. Castillo said that he had been a private in the Cuban militia, the Segundo Organización Defensiva, in Santiago, Cuba, where he was initially chosen for training and espionage work. He was subsequently trained by the Defensiva under a Colonel Calma at a camp located about 15 miles from the Bay of Pigs. Among the members of the training cadre, Castillo said, were a communication expert named Karnowski, along with some other Cubans and a handful of Americans. One American he identified was James Smith, who attended to Castillo's needs both as a civilian in Cuba and later in the United States. So, this guy, they're saying, like, they've got a whole backstory.
Yeah.
About and they've done their own investigation. It's not just like we've got our CIA. The NBI has agents too.
Yeah. It's crazy.
3 years later, on October 2nd, 1966, Castillo was arrested in New Mexico and charged with driving without a proper auto registration. His arrest was made under the Elorriaga identity. Castillo was brought before New Mexico Justice of the Peace Elmer Bassett and sentenced to 4 days in jail. The reason I gave him a jail sentence, Bassett said, was I figured when a fellow has a hard time remembering what his name is, there's something wrong with him. After serving his sentence, Castillo was turned over to U.S. immigration authorities because he had no proof of U.S. citizenship. Bassett reported that Castillo said he was from Madison, Wisconsin, but was born in the Philippines. He couldn't show that he was from the Philippines or that he wasn't. Bassett also revealed that someone had called him a few hours after Castillo had appeared before him and asked that the man be released. "I don't know who it was," Bassett said. "I just told him I couldn't do that." According to the NBI, Castillo had Antonio Elorriaga's Philippine passport on his person when he was arrested in Manila. Based on the information provided by the intelligence services of the Philippine Armed Forces, the NBI had been searching for him since February. They had evidence that Castillo, in the guise of Elorriaga, had made contact with a guerrilla group that was constantly plotting to assassinate Marcos and overthrow the Philippine government. The NBI set to work grilling their captured suspect. They knew something of his criminal past. They knew, for example, he'd been arrested in '62 for carrying a concealed weapon. They also knew that 2 years later he'd been sentenced to a state reformatory in Bordentown, Jersey, for larceny. So as a kid, he's carrying a weapon, and then he goes to a state reformatory.
So he's just fucking full-on institutionalized.
Yeah. But nothing prepared them for the shocking story implicating him for the events of Dallas. They asked Castillo to submit to a lie detector test and were surprised when he said he preferred truth serum. Suspicious of both his strange story and his behavior, NBI officials called in a psychiatrist to examine him. But even after the psychiatrist judged Castillo normal, the NBI investigators still refused to take Castillo's bizarre and contradictory story at face value. Later, reporters connected with the Manila Times were equally dumbfounded by Castillo's strange behavior. Oh man, I gotta get a sip of water.
Grab a drink, my man. Just another fucking sleeper agent. Him and Pettit both. This is
Oh, dude.
Sad story.
One reporter described him as a now talkative, now reticent cloak and dagger man. He clammed up when he was asked whether he was in the Philippines to help implement an assassination plot against President Marcos. In his truth serum statement, he claimed he had worked with a cell of Reds to end someone's life. But during his interview with the press, he said, "Neither do I admit or deny it." When quizzed about Lee Harvey Oswald, he drew a blank. As a member of the Warren Commission, Gerald Ford was queried by the Philippine authorities about Castillo's revelations concerning the assassination. Ford said that he would not comment on the Castillo story until he had more information. A spokesman for the Dallas Police Department said they had no record on Castillo. Nevertheless, the U.S. Embassy did not agree to closed-door meetings between embassy officials and NBI Director Serafin Fausto on the subject of Castillo. After the meeting, Fausto refused to comment further on the story, but he did tell reporters that although publication of the story is prejudiced investigation of the case, one good thing has come out of it. Needed information is coming in from the United States to shed light on the case. So yeah, suddenly the U.S. is definitely talking to him about this guy.
Whoa.
Right? Fausto also made it clear that leads obtained from the U.S. Embassy justified continuing the investigation of Castillo's link to the assassination of President Kennedy. After making an official request for assistance from the FBI, the NBI clamped a news blackout on the story, and nothing further was published in the press. Private investigations later revealed that Castillo was spirited out of the Philippines, but not before a series of hypnotic sessions had taken place at the request of the FBI. The FBI wanted to have Castillo, while under hypnosis, place the time of the Kennedy assassination. They wanted to know when Castillo had come to Dallas, what time he arrived at the building, and from what location he was supposed to shoot. They wanted to know what time he left the building, the names of any people involved, and any information which might indicate how the plot was hatched and by whom. It came as a surprise to the NBI that the FBI also wanted Castillo questioned about the Boyeros Airport, 8 miles south of Havana, Cuba. The FBI requested that the tightest possible security be kept on any testimony obtained from the hypnotic sessions.
Whoa.
In the last of 3 sessions requested by the FBI, Castillo was induced into a deep hypnotic trance by the ordinary talking method in an NBI interrogation room in Manila. While in that trance, he was questioned for more than 3.5 hours. The hypnotist report stated, initially the subject indicated an admixture of desired susceptibility to hypnosynthesis, but deep-seated resistance due to the presence of a post-hypnotic block. This block appeared to have been connected with the presence, nightmarish, of a Miss Krebs. The total removal of this block may pave the way for maximum results. So,
They
like
something
he
in him to block hypnosis.
well, no, they put in like a post-hypnotic block is a functionally a post-hypnotic suggestion to stop people from being able to hypnotize you. Because even though you are very susceptible, you're not going to go into the trance unless it's by one of the people that told you can go into trances. In this case, because they programmed this person.
Gotcha. Only the master can control this puppet.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very much, right?
Gotcha.
The hypnotist reported that during the pre-trance warm-up, he examined Castillo and found little scars on his forehead, chest, stomach, and fingers. Castillo's told him that the scars were the result of a car accident in the U.S., which happened when some men were chasing him while he was trying to deliver an envelope of some kind. Castillo mentioned that after the crash, he'd awakened in bandages in a hospital bed.
Oh.
Yeah, so has a crash, has a bunch of wounds.
Wakes up.
It's the 60s. It's time to Leonard Collier your ass. We're going to put some quartz radio transceivers in you.
You're gonna be our fucking Operation Acoustic Kitty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Names which were presented to Castillo in the pre-trance interview were repeated while he was under hypnosis. He recognized the names of several individuals who were then gaining notoriety in connection with New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison's JFK assassination investigation. But Castillo revealed that he knew some of the people by other names. Throughout his recollections, Castillo suffered stomach cramps, said he felt a weight on his legs, and cried out in pain a number of times. Through the manipulations of the hypnotist, he was able to recall that on many different occasions he'd been taken to a factory. Miss Krebs and Castillo had always driven to the factory in her car, and they'd always entered through the front door. Castillo could not remember the exact location of the factory other than it was located way outside Chicago. He spoke of a romantic relationship with Miss Krebs, but while one moment he spoke of her as nice and kind, in the next breath he said he hated her. It's a BDSM programming situation, weaponizing sex and drugs and hypnosis
Okay. So
to create power dynamics based on the sexual response and aversion to pain.
Okay.
Like, so people are guided one of two ways, right? Either they seek pleasure and avoid pain, or they avoid pain and seek pleasure. And that's a set of priorities, right? So people who seek pleasure first worry about avoiding pain in the middle of it.
Yeah.
People who avoid pain first worry about seeking pleasure within the context of the rules of avoiding pain.
Yeah. Gotcha. Fucking A. These ways of controlling people. See, now we have sexuality involved.
Right, absolutely. According to the hypnotist report, one thing was certain. Whoever Miss Krebs was, she controlled the subjects in activities and consciousness like a nightmare. Eliciting information from Castillo was no easy task. Over the course of many interrogations, the hypnotist discovered that Castillo could be taken to 4 different hypnotic levels. It appeared to the hypnotist that each level came closer to the truth. He labeled these states Zombie 1, Zombie 2, Zombie 3, and Zombie 4. Depending on which zombie state Castillo was in, his mannerisms and identity changed. In the first state, Zombie 1, Castillo believed he was Eloriaga, and he told tales of anti-American espionage. During Zombie 2, he took the identity of a tough-talking CIA agent in trouble. While in Zombie 3, again Castillo emerged as an agent whose cover had been blown. At this level, however, he experienced a compulsion to kill himself. On the day he was to have assassinated Marcos, Castillo responded to a program he had revealed in an earlier interrogation. He attempted suicide in his jail cell by swallowing a bottle of epoxy glue.
Whoa. You have a whole James Bond espionage list of characters in your head.
Yeah. The Zombie 4 state revealed that Castillo's true name was Manuel Angel Ramirez, a 29-year-old native of the Bronx, New York. In this state, he had no recollection of his youth except for a hazy memory of his father, the Ramirez believed was a highly placed official at the agency. As Ramirez, Castillo said that most of his life had been spent in training with or on missions for the Special Operations Group of the CIA. He remembered one training camp where he learned clandestine and martial arts. Throughout the interrogations, the theme of programmed agent emerged. Castillo's testimony under hypnosis was that of an individual whose identity had been completely erased and reconstructed several times over. Johnny Mnemonic?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Imagine if Johnny Mnemonic's a hypno-programmed state, and you've got like 2 blown agent covers, so if they get 1 level deep on you and think they found the real you, they're still 2 levels below who you are.
Yeah, you have to keep...
And before you actually get to the lowest state, you have another one that's designed to kill themselves.
You have protective levels. Like, you literally built firewalls in another human's mind.
Yes, you have built firewalls in another human's mind to separate out different personalities.
Whoa.
On May 30th, 1967, Castillo spontaneously went from his normal state into a zombie state. In answering Castillo's questions about transfer from the hospital to jail, the hypnotist unknowingly said, "That depends entirely on the big chief, you know." Upon hearing these words, a blank look came over Castillo's eyes, and all efforts to wake him were at first unsuccessful. The hypnotist then called out a series of phrases from Castillo's notebooks and found that the phrases, "I will win if I don't lose my nerve," and "I must believe myself or no one else will believe me," awakened him. The next day was Castillo's birthday. The NBI planned to give him a birthday party as an excuse to get him drunk to see if his behavior changed. Castillo, it seemed, had a huge capacity for liquor. Drunk to the eyeballs, he saluted one of the NBI agents and called him Colonel. "Where do we fly tonight, Colonel?" he asked. The agent quickly told him that he was to fly the same mission as the last one. Castillo said, "Hey, Pong," then drunkenly fell into bed. That is,
Whoa.
yeah, Hey Pong is I want to say there was a battle in Vietnam there.
Yeah.
Then drunkenly fell into bed. He dug his fingers into his throat and vomited. He cried out for a doctor and between vomit spasms rattled out his mission to the hypnotist. He said his real name was Manuel Angel Ramirez. His rank was sergeant and he was assigned to the Strategic Air Tactical Command in South Vietnam. He said his immediate superior was Colonel Summers. He was in Saigon in January 66, he related, and had flown B-26 missions over Haiphong and Hanoi. He came to Manila, he said, to kill President Marcos in June when the president would make a public speech. If his assassination attempt failed, someone else would get Marcos before the end of 1968, Castillo added. "I am dying," he groaned, and pleaded for a doctor. He thought he was dying from a heart attack. "If I die today," he warned, "my secrets die with me." When the NBI doctor arrived, he examined Castillo and pronounced him fit except for his obviously drunken state. He tried to give him a shot to calm him down, but Castillo protested violently. The doctor then asked him to take a pill, which he did without resistance.
Whoa.
2 days later, Castillo was given another medical examination by Dr. Alexis Guerrero of the NBI. A series of tests were given to measure his breathing rate, pulse rate, sweat production, and other function. All of these tests were performed in zombie states 1, 2, and 3. The doctors noted that in each state, there was a vast difference in his pulse rate and assumed, because of what Castillo said and the reactions of his heart and respiration, that he was experiencing some emotional agitation. Sodium amytal was administered while he was in the zombie 3 state. According to the hypnotist, Castillo did not even notice he'd been given the injection. Soon he began to talk as he'd done previously in the drunken state. "I'm Sergeant Manuel Ramirez of the Tactical Air Command," he said. When asked to reveal his base, he said, "You'll never know," adding, "I'm a pilot. I've flown a B-26.
Huh.
The NBI are suckers," he said a little bit later. "They thought they arrested me, but there I was, waiting for them to get me. I know of a great plot. I'm supposed to expose it after I'm arrested. I know I will eventually return to my country, the U.S. I'll go through the motions of a trial, conviction, and jail as a criminal, and after a couple of months, I'll be released for my next assignment." Hey, Ronald Hadley Stark did 5 years in Italian prison building up networks on the Red faction for the Italian government. While they didn't know who he was, even though he was informing to them, and they're desperately trying to figure out who he is.
This is nuts.
Awakened from the zombie state, Castillo was told all about these various states and his strange behavior while in them. The hypnotist explained how he thought Castillo had been programmed. Castillo seemed baffled by this news. He said he was not told by anyone about being programmed. He said that Papa didn't even know about the zombie state. He grew agitated, saying that if he were in the zombie state, he might even kill Papa, and then the agency would go to blazes. Hell will break loose on the guy responsible for the zombie. Asked in a trance to identify Papa, Castillo said he was not just a guy, but was his real father. He described him as having a mustache and smoking a pipe. He said that he was the only one who could send the agency to blazes if he, Castillo, was killed on this mission. He said that Papa's initials were A.D. and his first name was Alan. It's fucking Alan Dulles of the CIA. That's what this is implying. Now, once again, I've explained, I don't exactly know what Walter Bowen's what his goals were with this book, but I know it's basically it's something, right? It may absolutely be nothing but fake propaganda.
Now, do you think that this is the actual him and that is his actual dad? He's like maybe a bastard son of...
Well, we talk about occult groups. Don't they believe in child sacrifice? I don't think that's necessarily just fucking throwing a knife in your kid. I think it might be leaving it up to God to risk whether or not your kid lives or dies.
Yeah.
And that you have to be willing to even sacrifice, in that sense, your literal child to becoming an agent.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe.
I'm following. I mean, I totally think that there might be something to this. I mean...
Oh, so let's see. John says it sounds like Alias. And Alley Cat Tails says that she is cooking, cleaning, and listening.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, I hope this is good in cooking and cleaning and listening fare.
Yeah, I'm still taking in all this information on this character because he's now become 4 characters.
After more than 40 hypnotic sessions lasting from 1 to 5 hours each, covering the period from April 3rd to June 25th, 1967. Keep in mind that means hypnotic sessions were definitely happening
Yeah.
to who knows how much degree before that press conference. I mean, they said hypnotic grilling. So starting April 3rd, press conference is April 20th.
Yeah. Sorry.
The hypnotist reviewed the data and summarized it for the chief of the Defense Intelligence Division of the National Bureau of Investigation. The summary report not only involved Castillo in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, it disclosed that Castillo was a hypnotized programmed zombie who would kill on cue. The summary report stated, "The zombie phenomenon referred to here is a somnambulistic behavior displayed by the subject in a conditioned response to a series of words, phrases, and statements apparently unknown to the subject during his normal waking state. Under the influence of such a zombie state, the subject closed his eyes, rose bodily, walked, triggered a pistol, stared blankly, and fell to the floor with no apparent sense of physical pain. As far as could be determined experimentally, the zombie behavior had for its objective the assassination of President Ferdinand Marcos of the Republic of the Philippines."
Whoa.
And we rolled in the 80s and got Marcos finally.
Yeah.
And before that, we
Yeah.
just made fun of how Imelda Marcos owned so many shoes while her people were suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. Imelda Marker. Yeah.
The report also added, "Neither the presence nor the discovery of the zombie states in our subject should be regarded as noble or unique. If anything, the only remarkable character of the zombie state in our subject is its deeply ingrained and systematic presentation, indicating a certain disturbing degree of conditioning."
Whoa. Like they tortured him while doing it.
In a lengthy summary, the NBI hypnotist and deprogrammer of Castillo recounted the details of exactly how he had uncovered the key that unlocked the programmed assassin's mind. The letters XBGUMIDUTYBX were found scribbled on the white surface of a cigarette package which was in Castillo's possession at the time of his arrest.
XB gummy duty.
This is something.
XB will be XB gummy duty BX. Like that's like the words I see in it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the XB could be a framing device,
Yeah.
right? But it also could be a way to make you think that there's something there specifically. Like they make that to use as a programming key. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Hold on. Where were we? The paper had been folded carefully and tucked into the back of his watch. Castillo had told investigators that this piece of paper was given him by a man named Louis Mauricio. Castillo said that Mauricio also gave him money. Mauricio was known to the NBI as a member of the Hook Guerrillas. Placing Castillo in a trance, the hypnotist called out the series of letters on the cigarette package. Castillo did not react. He then tried calling out the letters, pausing at different places. He found that when he paused between the G and the U, saying XBG, UMIDUTYBX, Castillo would reply with, "I am myself to kill." The hypnotist then tried the letters one at a time and then in different combinations. While many of the combinations produced no response, the following were significant. When the hypnotist said X, Castillo quickly answered Mauricio. When the hypnotist said BGU, the Castillo slowly said, "I am myself." When the hypnotist said MI, Castillo answered, "To kill." In another session, the hypnotist experimented with saying, "Louis Castillo is a command." The hypnotist reported a pathetic sight takes place after this. The subject turns his pistol to his own temple and squeezes the trigger as many times as his name is repeated. When the hypnotist would say June 12th, 1967, 12 o'clock, June 22nd, 1967, July 4th, 1967, or January 1st, 1968, Castillo would invariably aim the pistol and squeeze the trigger.
Whoa.
The hypnotist found that after the preparatory command to put him in a trance, if Castillo's eyes were open and he saw a photograph of President Marcos, he would, with no verbal instructions, aim and repeatedly squeeze the trigger of his pistol, following the photo wherever it was taken around the room. If the hypnotist said the word kill while Castillo was following this program, he would drop heavily to the floor and remain motionless. The hypnotist report also includes Castillo's amazing story about his participation in yet another organized assassination attempt. Under hypnosis, Castillo said that the assassination had happened before noon. He remembered being with a man called Lake, who he would describe as a tall man weighing about 190 pounds, with a hawk-like nose, black hair, and oriental eyes set in a long face. Lake spoke with a foreign accent which Castillo could not identify. He said that he remembered meeting Lake along with 4 or 5 other men in the airport. They then drove together in a black car to a building. Castillo said that he thought that the group included both Americans and foreigners, and he thought one man was Spanish. When the group arrived at the building, Castillo said they climbed to the second-floor room, which he described after some uncertainty as brown. The room contained packing crates, a short brown table, a typewriter, and 2 lift-up windows overlooking a street. Lake opened a black suitcase, which Castillo described as a bowling bag with a zipper and lock. It contained a scope and pieces of a rifle, which Lake assembled. He set the scope at 500 yards and gave the rifle to Castillo. Castillo did not seem certain about the make or caliber of the rifle, but finally said that he thought it was Russian. Lake told him to shoot a man in the back of an open car in the middle of the caravan. He said that the man would be seated with a lady or another man. A mirror was to be flashed twice from a building across the street so that Castillo would know when he was to shoot. When he saw the 2 flashes, he was supposed to shoot at the next car coming into view. When he was questioned about the identity of the man riding in the open car, Castillo said he did not know who the victim was. After Lake had assembled the rifle and had given Castillo his instructions, he went downstairs. Later, Lake rushed into the room. "They got him already," Lake told him. "Let's get out of here." He then grabbed the rifle away from Castillo, dismantled it, and stuffed it and the scope into the black bag. Castillo and Lake rushed downstairs, got into a car with 2 other men, and drove away from the building. They picked up a bald-headed skinny man after they turned the first corner. Bald-headed skinny man. Bald-headed guy. Another one of these bald eagles.
Yeah.
Right? So where were we? They picked up a bald-headed skinny man after they turned the first corner. 3 or 4 blocks later, the car stopped and picked up another man. Castillo said he was riding in the back seat between Lake and the man who just joined them at the second stop. As the car drove away from the scene of the crime, the unidentified man gave Castillo an injection when he wasn't looking. He went immediately to sleep and woke up in a Chicago hotel room with Miss Krebs.
Whoa.
He and Miss Krebs got into a blue car and drove to Milwaukee, Castillo said. So they take him from Dallas back to the programming center in Chicago, gets with Krebs, immediately down to Milwaukee.
Who the fuck is Miss Krebs?
I think that Miss Krebs is probably a Nazi programmer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I think, not only that, I think that that probably one of the reasons that you're seeing the Philippines be the ones involved is I'm pretty sure they also had some Nazi scientists there. So yeah, they might have, like, he might have been being had this how do I put it? His conditioning might have been broken by someone who was more skillful because they had access to better techniques than the CIA. Right?
Fucking crazy.
He and Miss Krebs got into a blue car and drove to Milwaukee, Castillo said. While driving there, they heard the news of the assassination of JFK on the car radio. Within a few days after the hypnotist submitted his final report, Castillo was out of the NBI jail and had left the Philippines for parts unknown. It was later uncovered that Castillo was returned to the United States in '67 and questioned by the FBI, whose spokesman said, "We talked to Castillo and he told us he fabricated his story about the Kennedy assassination. Said he'd made it up in Manila."
Bullshit.
Official record says that Castillo was sentenced to 6 years on the Missouri Penitentiary for robbery in June 1971. On August 74, he was released after serving 37 months. So he's released early. right as everything's going haywire in 74, right as everything's about to break with the church committee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Castillo's last known contact was with his mother shortly after his release from prison. Since then, he has disappeared from both his family and those researchers who would like to question him further. If Castillo had indeed made it up in Manila, as the FBI spokesman claimed, then he would have had a phenomenal memory, an incredibly high tolerance to sodium amytal and alcohol, and virtuoso acting ability. Neither the psychological profile nor the life history of Luis Angel Castillo supports the conclusion that he possessed any of those talents.
Exactly. They were hypnotizing him with
Yeah.
like judge appointed fucking hypnotists.
Yeah.
So bullshit. Bullshit, he said it was bullshit.
Now the reason why, right? Why was he there to assassinate Noriega? Or not Noriega, but
Marco?
yeah, Marco.
Yeah.
Because supposedly supposedly that Japan during World War II, and the Nazis knew about this.
Oh.
And this is the reason we fought the Japanese was so hard, was for this, right? They had hoovered up something that in 1940s money would amount to around 450 trillion with a T
Whoa.
dollars worth of wealth
Whoa.
from China during the period of World War II. And if you look into it, like, there's no way of knowing how much money that they functionally and art and treasure that they pulled out of there. But it is known that it's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And the idea was that the vast majority of it was spirited out by the Japanese toward the end of World War II, right? When they knew that they were basically going to lose. You got me? Hidden in the Philippines, and we cut a deal with the Nazis for access to it. Right?
Oh, shit.
So it's like an off-books crime slush fund of money that has to be laundered.
Yeah.
Right?
If you need to start up a black op, this is where you go.
And Marcos was dipping into it too much because he was hosting it. So right? And so when you hear about how Marcos is drawing too much, functionally he's drawing too much attention to what's supposed to be a third world country in geopolitics because his wife has too many shoes.
Yep.
Like that being the narrative, that he's
Yep.
drawing too much attention because how the fuck is the world supposed to explain where he's getting the ability to purchase all this third world dictator?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got
He's
me?
supposed to be living it. Yeah. It's supposed to be. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so wow. I honestly assumed that I would read slower than that. It ended up taking another hour, but I'm up to spitball on this subject all fucking night. That's all my prepared material,
Hey,
y'all.
I do that too. I always overshoot the amount of time that I think it'll take me to get something out. And then I overshoot how much. Like if I shoot 4 hours, I'm like, well, that'll be a give up doing it.
But guys, yeah, if you've been listening, man, let me let's open up the Discord.
Yeah. We should
I'm
already
gonna
be
let
popped
you do
open. Let's see here. We should be popped open and unmuted. Yeah. Looks like we got Chiefs in here. Boom. There we go. We got Chief and Justin right now. Again, if anybody wants to come in and chit chat, pop on in. I'm kind of having an allergy attack, so I sound nasally as fuck.
Just say go.
I can't hardly do it.
You're just glottal man over there.
I can't breathe through my nose. But yeah, dude.
This stuff is wild, and this is the sort of thing I've been really looking into for a while. There's a reason these themes keep coming back up, right? It's because it's so weird to me that they'll control us to save us in the same way they'll destroy the village to save it, man.
I can't help but think that this kid was genuinely maybe, I don't know, do you think maybe they have their own breeding program and they fucking made a bunch of kids think that was his dad?
I think that the Nazis,
yeah,
right, definitely had breeding programs even of their own to create Ubermensch, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when they got down to South America, there's no reason they wouldn't keep thinking along that mindset because they view humans as animals.
Yeah.
Like completely 100% is nothing but animals.
Yeah.
And so, no, I wouldn't be surprised if the kid was fucking born on an oil super tanker and then assigned a city to get papers in.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's totally, I think, a possibility.
Oh. Oh, hell yeah. This Princess Ruth. Secret.
There was some secret program by us and who else to rescue Jews from Germany and transport them to the Philippines. There was a movie on this. I'd be definitely interested in finding out about that because if that's the case, and also there's a bunch of basically Axis gold there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, look, Israel's going to want their fucking cut.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yeah, they are.
And Japan's going to, not Japan, but China's going to want their cut. And that's a real big problem when China goes communist. You got me? Yeah. Like, nobody in the developed West, no matter what, is going to hand over more money than is currently known in the world economy if you adjust for inflation, because most of this wasn't money. The cash was spent or fucking invested years ago. It was treasure.
Resources, art, gold.
Exactly. The sheer amount of Chinese artisanal temple gold in statues that was stolen and melted.
Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about ancient stuff, too. Yeah. So things of historical relevance, which adds value.
Well, and they don't. And I say melted, not necessarily, because like they might have kept it and been like, well, we'll melt it as we need it, or we'll ransom it back to them.
If you got them, smoke them. It's that time of the program. Hey, welcome, Princess Warrior.
There was a seat, yeah. I need to check that out. I want to see that movie. Yeah, I haven't heard about it, but
that sounds like a good movie.
But yeah, if it's based on reality, then I want to know the story behind it.
Like, absolutely.
Well, like, one of my favorite characters in all these stories who we haven't really gotten to, the guy who invented the silencer for the back 10, Colonel Mitch Warbell. He's a colonel in the Afghan Air Force. He was an OSS operative, old school. He was never in the CIA, but always worked with the CIA. He's one of those guys. Like a member of, when they say the Old Boy Network, he is an actual member of what is the Old Boy Network.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Whoa.
Yeah, man. And he was involved working with Chiang Kai-shek to fight the Japanese in World War II before the Communist Revolution, right? So they've got deep ties with Chiang Kai-shek. And our intelligence report were basically like, oh yeah, no, that's a terrible dictatorship there in China. I mean, they're running concentration and torture camps and all that shit. Yeah. You know, but they'll help us fight the Japanese. So the operations that he would work on, they would pay them in 5-pound sacks of opium.
What?
And this is a big part of where the opium smuggling ring from, whether it's the far, like out of China, or whether it's from the Fertile Crescent of Afghanistan, or what they call the Golden Triangle.
Yeah.
Either of those, the Golden Crescent, excuse me, the Golden Crescent, the Golden Triangle. And so that Golden Triangle connection really starts, which was the French connection. They were getting their heroin out of that, and out of areas near Vietnam, you know, and all of that ties back to allies with Chiang Kai-shek. Which, keep in mind, that's Taiwan now, right?
Whoa.
Who were helping us fund it through drugs, because drugs have... Look, man, drugs, you can transport a lot of money a lot easier in drugs. That's one of the reasons they have an appeal. That's why LSD was a super drug for the intelligence agencies, because I can carry around a tiny little notebook worth of paper that's already been dosed, much less in liquid form, and it's not... You can't tell that it is anything unless it's on that specific drug-oriented blotter paper.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. That's fucking... It just sucks that we for sure... I don't know. I am hella convinced at this many episodes deep now that we don't just know how to do these things, that we did do these things. Whatever his real name is, Castillo. Let's say his name is... What was
Luis Angel Castillo.
Yeah, because Castillo, Pettit, both of them.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine being a noose around your neck, your feet are dangling, and you're screaming at the man in the hood?
Yeah.
I know what you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know what's in me. I know what you're hiding. I know what you're trying to bury. Like, to be the fucking dangling man like that.
Guys.
It's tragic as fuck, and you can tell someone like Pettit, they didn't account for that.
No.
That fucker was gonna die twice.
No, absolutely, man. And
that fucker was gonna die twice.
That dude was just the Michael Malloy of the drug smuggling game.
Yeah.
Like just unkillable like a fucking roach, you know. And they really don't account for that because in many ways they think in math. Like I've got an old CIA training manual that I found, and when it talks about how if you need to kill somebody, that the easiest ways are either a drop from over 5 stories or hit them at the base of the neck with something that's relatively heavy like a desk lamp. Woo! Right? Because that will take out the average person. Also, people fall without opening their parachutes and survive, man.
Yeah.
Like so, and people like your father, like this man's dad's been domed with a hammer and just like went to sleep, woke up fine.
Yeah. Like what? Yeah. Like not even concussed. Hit in the back of the head with a hammer.
Went to the hospital saying, "I'm certain I'm concussed," and they're like, "You're fine."
I also like that's kind of just a thing with the males in my family. We don't concuss. We just don't. I don't know when the last time like an on the books concussion was.
Right.
Not in my lifetime, and that includes my son,
Yeah.
who sustained multiple. Like he's a big headed toddler, dude. He'll bop his head all the time.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times they thought for sure concussion, but no, dude. No, not these skulls.
Now, one thing I'd like to talk about is this Walter Howard Bowart, Walter Howard Kirby, writes under a lot of different names. Let's talk about the source material for this story. Because for one, whether or not this material is an accurate and true story, right?
I mean, I'm
The
fucking hella convinced only because, like, when we're talking about his account of it in this book, he is referencing, and I believe him the way it's worded, the accounts of 2 different infrastructures. 3 if you account the bullshit nonsense the FBI fucking says.
Well, look, that's a good analysis in general. Yeah. I just want to say, and I'm not trying to say that was a cool story, let's not believe it.
Yeah, well, it's only because he had such well-cited sources.
Well, it's not just that, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that this guy, his job is to sort of dilute some stuff. You got me? His job is to put some red herrings out there. It's to sort of tell the truth, yet do it in stories that people can prove are wrong, so it disproves the idea in association. You got me?
Yeah.
Now, I talk about Darren Brown. There's one of his shows that he does where he programs a hypnotic assassin.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah,
that's evil, Darren Brown.
Yeah, the guy becomes better at shooting. At one point, he convinces people to throw what they truly believe because he does a swap on them. Like he proves it's acid, right?
Yeah.
And then he swaps them out at the last second, like sleight of hand when they're not paying attention, with water. And when given the trigger, the person picks it up and throws it in the face of the person next to him. Whoa. So all those acid attacks that happened during the Bush administration, but happened during the Tony Blair administration in England.
Yes.
Right? How many of those were David Mayotte type fundamentalists? Sleeper agents who didn't even know that they were carrying acid or going to throw it in someone's face.
I wonder how much of how many people like Castillo or Pettit were produced during the Cold War alone.
I would say an astounding amount because of if the first chapter of that book is accurate, it sounds like for a time, anybody that was working on anything of top secret clearance had it done to them. That's a lot of people. Currently in America right now, 2 million people have just top secret. There's different levels of what they call above top secret clearance. But yeah, the standard top secret technical clearance, there's 2 million people in America that have that. Now, we've got a much larger above-board intelligence apparatus now, but let's just say that 2 million people is about 1 out of 150.
Yeah.
So that would be...
Didn't a Russian father and daughter get a real attack like that in England or something not too long ago?
Oh, I haven't heard about that. I sort of have not kept up with that sort of street terror as much because it's gotten so out of control since the Libyan migrant crisis.
Yeah.
And from that point forward.
Yeah.
And with so many countries in Europe having swung hard right, I see a strategy of tension being egged on over there. I'm not saying it's all by hypno assassins and shit. But
It seems well, yeah.
but
yeah,
I'm
but
saying
that's
that,
gotta
that
be
based on
normal.
everything that we've been seeing, that is not an inarguable position that it could be.
Most important thing for me about it is that
Oh.
we know they can do it, and I'm applying some John Nash game theory here.
Oh, yeah.
And if motherfuckers are cheating and can cheat, and you know how to cheat, you yourself know how to cheat. They also do, and they are doing it. You should assume that.
Well, and this is in many ways the most distilled academic form of the repugnant philosophy.
This is it as condensed down. This is like the Campbell's fucking soup of that.
No, it is.
This is industrialized.
And I want to be super clear.
Like, it's fucking scary.
Well, even like what you just said in many ways is like that, because it's the obvious implication of game theory that we know to be effective. So once again, sometimes it's going to sound like I'm veering towards suddenly supporting it. I'm just trying to understand it and be real about why it happened, because I don't want to believe that these people are... I don't think it's wrong to call them monsters, but I don't want to think of them as... I don't want to fictionalize them. I don't want to... I want a person who lobotomizes a fucking 6-year-old, a thing that happened, is, to my mind, ethically and morally a monster. I don't want to dehumanize them, though, into actual monstrousness, because it's important to understand that they know how to manipulate otherwise good people into doing terrible things. Who knows how many of them were comparably manipulated in a thing that functions like generational trauma? And not to say it's like trauma, I mean like it's been weaponized to create strength within their internal security apparatus.
It's Dune Thursday, and I'm also a never againer. So look, when it comes to making judgments on people like that or scientific infrastructures, like, you do have to leave a certain amount of your own fear and prejudice behind, and look at it. What they did, what the outcome was in retrospect.
Oh,
and you
100%.
can't do that until you've moved through it and seen the potential benefits show up as well as the fucking cons, right? Hey. And there's things like this.
I want to see
where
Marty
I'm like,
McFly walking. Y'all want to see Marty McFly walking? You know you do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't... Unless Michael J. Fox personally wronged you, you'd prefer that guy no longer suffered from Parkinson's. And the end result today is that the technology they began gaining the research on during this era, for the most insidious of reasons, may yet have that man walking. I don't want to throw the baby out with bathwater. I'd prefer that we are informed by these things so that they cannot continue to happen nominally, so we can retain a technological edge against our enemies.
It's a confusing moral conundrum. You get it, especially if you're a fan of the sciences or classical education.
Absolutely.
Where it's what is the moral way to go about researching anything, particularly biology, because some of the most amoral experiments we've ever done to our own perception are things within our own anatomy and biology.
Right.
Going back to French doctors buying corpses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're burying empty caskets. Because motherfucker on a black market bought a corpse.
Yeah.
But what you get from that?
No,
what would history have been if that didn't happen?
No, well, and it is an astoundingly complex moral and ethical situation to try and navigate if you like living longer.
Yeah. That's like, when does the government feel the need to make sure every American has HDTV? Yeah, and foots the bill to get it
to everyone. No, like, I would make the argument too that one could say that the tools of modern entertainment can absolutely be co-opted, not just for neurolinguistic programming. Like here's one for you. There's a story from almost 10 years ago now where, when that first Xbox, I want to say Kinect, whatever their visual controller was, came out. And it operated off cameras.
Yeah.
Well, at MIT, they figured out how to get the same level of response off of a home Wi-Fi router. Right? That means they can, with one router, 10 years ago, they could figure out what your movements were well enough to control a game. With 3 routers 10 years ago, they could use triangulation techniques to fine-tune that down to millimeter resolution.
Jesus.
We are all carrying a Wi-Fi router in our pocket.
That's true. Yeah, we
And that doesn't even get into like what we're talking about with radio hypnotic intracerebral command.
Yeah.
Like y'all remember when you felt a ringtone
Yeah,
before it happened?
exactly.
Yeah, that stopped happening.
Yep. That's I still get that all the time. So that I don't have my phone.
I think that
Phantom ring.
That phantom ring,
Phantom
I think
ring.
that phantom ring may have something to it that's associated with this.
Oh, straight up.
You know?
Like everything.
Ooh, but no, like now I was talking about this Walter Howard Bowart guy, and oh, do I not trust this story? Right? Walter Howard Bowart was associated with the New Age movement in the 70s at the same time that our government, especially the Army, started attempting to infiltrate and understand the New Age movement. 1, to see if it was some sort of psyop against the American public, and 2, to see if they could learn anything about it. There's an excellent documentary based on an excellent book and a pretty mediocre film starring George Clooney called The Men Who Stare at Goats. And it really gets into how the people involved in those programs, what they went through, and then what they started doing in the 90s when they went into the private market with the sort of second New Age revolution that happened. And Bowart was part of this the whole time. Another thing is you see him change the name he operates under a lot of times. He's got a whole narrative that explains it. I'm not saying, I don't know that narrative's wrong, but it's also, it would be very convenient to utilize to have multiple identities even out there, right? You've got records that have you listed under these names now, not necessarily state records, but you know, bits of mail, shit like that. The sort of thing you go up to get a state ID card, right? So this guy himself, especially with his association with people like Timothy Leary, Allen Ginsberg, Abby Hoffman, Robert Crumb, Marshall McLuhan. Now that's a big one. He's the guy that Brian Oblivion from Videodrome was based on.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, when you consider that he was the initial sounding board, his little paper was the sounding board that got all these people really out there in the 60s, it becomes obvious this guy is known as a crux of the countercultural media. So if they wanted a guy who had the sway within those circles, the classic counterculture and the New Age movement of the 70s, to definitely start fearing their government, he's the guy you get to put out a book. And this book is considered his masterwork, right? Like it's mentioned in the first paragraph of his wiki, you know? So I'd like everyone to also entertain that while these stories may or may not be factually accurate, I can't guarantee that to you. I think in many cases they are demonstrating exact instances of how these things are done that quite often I can explain to myself, at least, based on my own understanding of hypnosis and my own private study.
We're at the point of bone conjunctive headphones. There's nothing we've talked about today that's out of the realm of right now modern technology.
Yeah, dude, no, you can go get it. Like I said, there's a fucking just sits on the top, but we're not even Neuralink, just sits on the top of your head and can measure your focus levels. There's that. I think it's the Muse controller. You know, this is all part of this same technology, and the entire goal that they wanted doesn't have to be achieved through the primitive means of fucking implants, right? Nor does it mean that you need to be afraid of your phone and your Wi-Fi router. Like don't end up paranoid from this shit. Just know that it happened.
Yeah, like I say on the show all the time, like they got my tracker, but
yeah,
I'm no use to their infrastructure, dude. Where they gonna watch me scratching my nuts and taking naps? Like what?
I'm not telling any stories up here that you can't find easily out there.
Yeah.
It's just most people aren't talking about it.
Yeah, that's what drives me nuts sometimes about some of the things you stumble upon are just how high profile it is.
Yeah.
And how little fucking press it
Dude,
gets.
90% of my research is on Google. That's obviously basically controlled by the CIA, to my mind.
All of the papers we looked at today, well, the majority of papers we looked at today were local papers.
Yeah. Well, you can get them all with an account on newspapers.com.
Yeah, they were.
You can get
local
most
area
of them
papers.
with just a Miami Herald account.
Yeah, well, they were like local area papers, which means mainstream media,
Yeah.
or even like places like the New York. Nobody thought it was an interesting fucking story, and that's insane to me because that should have been at worst
During the
a
period of the
conspiracy
Cold
that
War.
people were fucking wrapping their heads in tinfoil and talking about.
During the
Why did they
period of the
propagate
Cold
that?
War, they weren't going to propagate this. Like, it would be local, but it's not going to really go wide on your UPI or AP wires. Or
No,
routers.
yeah, but you see them go and hammer on space or aliens,
Yep.
or either it's fucking, you know what I mean? Like the fact
Well, it's
that they,
like part of it is because some of
that's
this.
why I think it was also fucking things that happened.
Well,
Why
they
else
didn't
would
want the
happen?
whole drug smuggling thing to come out.
That's true. Yeah, that's
Like they were trying to normalize people in the 60s and 70s through news articles to, oh, well, they're going to be able to just fix your brain with electricity here in the future, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was a thing that they were happy to fucking put out. They didn't want to mention, and it's tied to a mind control program, basically, for the use of creation of assassins and couriers and the like.
Yep.
And also, we fund it all by smuggling drugs,
Yep.
because we're going to utilize all of that to try and find a way to break all of the radical communists. And by that, we really just mean the Black Panthers.
We are sapping the resources out of South America at the same time, or whatever they're doing. Keeping well, no, they're not. They're dipping into it. Sounds like a stashed wealth.
Yeah, they're
South
they're
America.
dipping into it in both that and the South Pacific. You
Yeah.
got me? Like it's just the classic Nazi stomping grounds where Nazis are operating at that time, often in our input. We have a Nazi buried in Arlington Nationals, not Arlington, but the fucking Virginia cemetery. I can't think of our national cemetery's name all of a sudden, but yeah, he's there because he had joined the SS as part of the Finns, I want to say, because he hated the Soviets, and after the war, he escaped down to South America, got his way up here, joined the army as a private. They recognized his astounding military training, and he made it all the way up to being a trainer. He died in Vietnam in the middle of an operation.
Whoa,
Yeah, he was a Green Beret, my man.
that's fucking
Now,
crazy.
he wasn't a German Nazi, right? He was a Finn using any damn thing he could, but he didn't mind working with the Nazis. So, I mean, that should tell you about his character. I assume the Soviets did something terrible, as they did to him or his as a very young person, and he came out swinging for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that. Oof.
But what I'm saying is we work with those people. We even have them buried in our national cemeteries.
Yeah. 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 That's just, it's so fucking crazy to me. It's so fucking crazy to me. Like, a lot of the things we can prove our government's done for the sake of, again, protecting this bold experiment.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, look, I would have been terrified to be under Soviet rule. Like, I'm not trying to justify it,
I
but I
would've
sure get
freaked
the
the fuck
fear.
out, yeah.
I get the fear.
Oh, I would have freaked the fuck out if I was in. I mean, I know. I'm a never againer, dude. Hell no.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that this is, like, we start doing this in 46. The real civil rights struggle doesn't start popping off in the U.S. till 63.
Yeah, you asked this rabbi if he has a blessing for the czar. Yeah, I got one. Keep him safe and protect him. And keep him far away from me. Like, yeah, I'm quoting Fiddler on the Roof. But yeah, like,
Keep him far away from me.
yeah. Bless him, protect him, and keep him far away from me.
So
Shit scares me.
no, it's terrifying that you just have two groups of psychopaths to pick between, and you were born under the control of one of them.
Yep. Exactly.
And both groups think they're doing good.
Yeah.
Like hardcore communists that weren't just sociopaths abusing power thought that they were doing good.
Well, they were seeing return, and maybe a certain demographic was excelling in a place where they hadn't before.
So for a percentage, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. With all this info, y'all figure out how to pass at Christy and me that e-bonk yet? We're coming out with a new, it's a VR way to smoke.
Oh, is that got to do with Meta's new You Can Feel It gloves?
Oh, fuck yeah. We're going to do a whole, we're going to start doing, like, 360 VR Merc radio cast where you can feel Thick Biggie's butt cheeks with your Meta gloves. I'm kidding. I don't know. I wish, dude. That'd be cool as fuck. I'll be able to plug in, feel the same thing. Boy, that become a problem like nostalgia in the Watchmen universe.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I'm never. No, guys. I understand the power and appeal of VR. I think that's what Timmy Leary was trying to push us toward, and why he pushed computers so hard, and even early VR type technologies.
Yeah.
And that's no, man. I already don't spend enough time outside.
It gave me time distortion too bad.
I moved to fucking Tucson and gained 20 pounds, y'all.
Ooh, e-bong ripping one day, 3D print some bong, maybe. Do our own special 3D print designs.
I mean, you could do that. You could do that. You could do that tomorrow, Jacob.
Yeah, I could do that.
Using them Google tools.
Yeah, I fuck around with CAD a little bit too. I could probably design a bong, but I don't want to. No. When it's something that people can just fucking beep, get like a hot pocket. It ain't 3 days of calibration and then 2 days of printing a fucking bong that's lopsided.
Man, I'm gonna try and get a 3D printer next year.
Oh man, those things look sick. And the only thing I've heard is it's a bitch to fucking maintain them.
Oh well, I'm one of those people that because of the way I was trained in the machine shop, I will be like, oh well, I just do the deep clean once I'm done using it.
Yeah, you get. Yeah,
it's just like no, this is like it looks new every time, guys.
Yeah, and calibrating heads can be funky, but again, you and I, we kind of have to the mic level of like attention to stuff like that. So I don't think it would be too hard for.
Oh yeah, no, I'm too OCD on stuff like that.
Yeah, I just can't. Special guests will tell you I got jeweler's hands, baby. I got jeweler's fingers. I can get in there. My grandfather was a machinist and tool maker.
Yeah, he was like a tool maker's tool maker, y'all.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you right now, that dude was like, is there a thing you need made out of anything? He can.
Yeah. Do you need to forge something? Do you need to rifle a barrel?
Didn't he once, instead of getting you new glasses, just cast a new temple out of plastic?
Well, check this out. So this is how pimp he was. He didn't just he ended up, I think, that year buying me new glasses, but then he insisted I give him the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the new ones. A couple days later, I go by with my new glasses on, and he's like, "Here, a backup pair."
Yeah.
And he had cast a new.
He
set of frame.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he was like just as a backup pair kind of thing. But no, he did do that.
Yeah.
He did do that. Like that was my grandpa in a nutshell. Like he could make anything out of anything, fix anything. One time I came over with a power steering issue, and he was like, "Your power steering pump is shot. It's a fucking $100 car. You're gonna have crushed. I know you. Here's a jug of hydraulic fluid. Put it in your power steering pump. It will work."
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked.
Yeah, no, that's just how he was, man. He lived in a junkyard and didn't buy anything other than pallets of stuff to resell.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Man, one time I had helped him move a vehicle from one of his properties to another, but the only fluids other than gasoline he put in this fucking automobile was hydraulic fluid.
Yeah,
and it fucking drove.
Depending on how old it is and how the system works, that's not going to rot out any seals and it'll work. It won't be optimal, but it'll work.
It'll work to move it, I guess. Yeah, he was like, "I don't give a fuck with moving it," And he was elderly, so he's like, "I got a feeling it's the last time I'm moving this fucking thing." He was like, "Okay, so y'all gonna fuck with this when I'm dead." He used to say shit like that all the time. You can deal with it when I'm dead.
Alley Cat says she grew up in the back of her dad and grandpa's auto shop.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic.
My dad, man, I mean, he was a nurse, but before that, he was a mechanic in the 70s. And, like, he was a Porsche mechanic at one point,
Yeah.
And no, it was, like, always, one of my earliest memories is coming in, and there's a motorcycle torn apart on the kitchen table.
Yeah. I remember, after Grandpa bought out of the company he had started with a friend of his that was really big in our area,
he had his own little setup, which is what I remember. Like, that's what I grew up with him being in and working in.
Yeah, it was just his one-man job shop.
Well, he had like one other dude.
Yeah.
It was like him and another guy. And, I had sweet metal shavings every now and then. There was a period of time where I'd have to go over there for a year or two, like after school and shit. Just because I think a bus took me there somehow. And so maybe my mom would drop me off, have to go work a second job or some shit. But he would work whatever hours he wanted, you know what I mean? So most of the time he was there. But I spent a lot of time in the back of like a machine shop. A tool making setup is what it was. He was making tools.
Well, it's a tool, what is generally called a tool maker's job shop. So it's like he can short run any damn thing you need. He can even set up for he could set up for a long run if he got a long contract. He'd just build the stuff he needed.
Yeah. Exactly.
These are the types of guys that it's like he's going to try and figure out whether it's cheaper for him to just build a mill or lathe or find an old crappy one and rebuild it. You know?
Yeah, that's also him.
He ain't going to buy a new one unless he gets some sort of deal.
No, yeah, well, he actually, normally when it gets to that point, he's like, he knows somebody.
Yeah.
He might be hitting somebody up, like, hey, you got something you can go out of your shop.
Yeah. What you got that's old and busted, I can rebuild.
Yeah. But my father was a very interesting man. We're talking about my grandfather on my mother's side, and he was a lot like a father to me. I didn't know my father really have a relationship with my father until I was more like a teenager. So just him and he started off at 16 years old being the guy that cleans off the big plastic injection mold things. But the ones that can crush you.
Yeah.
When it activates. And he was replacing a guy who had been crushed to death in this mold thing. And, he fucking legitimately worked his way from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, and, used to, that's how they do it. They'd take you in, basically sweeping the shop, and then they'd give you a job drilling holes.
Yeah. His childhood bedroom is the same childhood bedroom of Arianthe's kids. They live in the house he grew up in.
Wild.
The cabin he grew up in.
Wild.
Out in the Ozarks. Yeah, out to the Mark Twain National Forest. Old great grandpa used to chicken farm out there. Great grandma, I've almost heard no nice stories about my great grandmother. The only one I've heard from my grandfather where he chuckled was one time I scared her and she beat me to the ground with a broom. And he laughed about it, and I was like, "Whoa!"
No, I've never heard any nice stories about my great grandfather. Who's apparently a drunk tyrant. I know that my grandfather and his brother, my Uncle Harry, that when they were kids, they would I think they'd walk to Waycross. It was 20 miles one way.
Oh,
right. And during the week, they would hand make furniture.
Whoa,
you got me. And then on the weekend, they'd walk it up to Waycross on a cart to sell it. Because it was that poor in Georgia in the Depression.
Fucking A, dude! I couldn't imagine having to grow up through the Depression either. I just know, you tell a story of something, PB&J with mayonnaise.
Yeah, no, my grandmother, man.
Depression era people who put mayonnaise on because it's got extra everything.
They're like, well, I mean, you need all that fat.
You need it.
Yeah.
You got to have.
All you're eating today is this one sandwich.
Calorie source.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This will keep you alive. This is life and death we're talking about. There's a special guest grandmother. I overheard a conversation he had with her one time, and it was so adorable.
She turns 107 this February.
Jesus. But her main concern is if special guest is eating or not.
Yeah, it's always, are you eating enough, baby?
You better be eating enough.
Now you are taking care. You hadn't been losing too much weight. Nah, Grandma. No, Grandma. I gained 20 pounds since I got to Tucson.
Now let me talk to your wife. Have y'all been eating? You've been cooking? You guys been eating? It's so fucking sweet. But you can tell the priority, the life and death level of priority sustenance was.
Yeah.
For Depression era people.
Well,
and that scares the shit out of me. When COVID popped off, I was like, Oh,
Dude, when COVID popped off, I called my family and was like, "Hey, should I buy 3 months worth of groceries?" They were like, "Yeah, you should."
yeah, if you can find a place that still has it.
Like,
get
and yeah,
there.
I mean, like, I went out that day and we got 2 fucking grocery carts packed top to bottom, including the bottoms. Like, my car was dragging ass carrying groceries.
This town is still feeling the effects of it. Our fucking market has like the meat
Oh, yeah.
options are fucking don't make sense or are inconsistent.
Yeah, no, it's
like,
the same
yeah.
even over at the Fry's where I'm at, or even if you go to like a Walmart.
Yeah, it's just like we got Bar S. Come back next week for some fucking Jimmy Dean. Like, damn, all you got is Bar S? Shit, fucking hot dogs made out of nylon, dude. That's like, shout out at Chief. Fucking, I still can't eat Bar S hot dogs because of an acid trip we had. Like, we watched hot dogs melt and still ate them. There's some cheap ass Bar S hot dogs, you know. It's a survival situation.
And I feel it's like, well, I need calories and I need them now.
And I want them warm. And it was very cold, and so you know it was good, but man, up on Cold Pussy Mountain, those nylon hot dogs, dude, I still can't eat Bar S shit. I get it. They have some bacon that's like the most factory cut bacon I've ever seen in my life, but it's consistent. And
I
that's
generally
cool,
eat
but
a relatively
weird.
consistent and boring diet, but I don't skimp on my ingredients, man.
yeah,
Like I'm not super food motivated. I enjoy food. Like I like to try food I've never had. I'm all about that. But yeah, like day to day, I eat the same 8 meals of stuff that's healthy for me, and I tend to overspend a little on my ingredients to cook at home. Which still is so much cheaper than if I ate out most of the time, and I feel better most of the time for it. But yeah, I try to avoid that. So because partially, when I was younger, I was just a human garbage processing machine.
my natural state when there's still not a kid around to take care of or someone else to be like, hey, we should actually kneel down because you need to survive for sure. I get just snacks and whatever creative project I'm working on. It's like, oh, well, I'm not at a job, so now is time for the quickest snack pot, like chips and the fucking DAW. Like sit down
Yeah.
at Logic Pro and eat chips.
Oh, dude, no, I have a big sack of trail mix. I'm just surviving off nuts and berries.
I miss trail mix so bad. It's so hard to find a peanut-free one.
Oh, yeah, well, they hadn't at least been processed. Yeah.
In a place near peanuts, because sometimes too I think a peanut can sneeze a mile away and I'm like, nah, damn you, Mr. Peanut. Fucking can't breathe now.
It's Mr. Peanut, but he's got a mincer scar.
Yeah. it's it's I can't say it. It's Air Peanut.
Air Peanut.
Air Peanut. He's got an umlaut on the nut. Mr. Peanut. Make my own alley. I think again you're kind of missing the prompt here. I'm such a lazy person. I just eat the fastest thing. I'm not gonna go out of my way to buy all the individual ingredients for trail mix them and eat it. I'm gonna eat each of those. I'm gonna eat one of those ingredients on the way home. It's not even gonna make it to the bowl of trail mix. So you're talking to a hungry hippo over here, man. Like it. No way. No way. in
Hot
hell.
dog ingredients include urethobait, which is worms. Yeah, but like I like black licorice, so I don't get food adverse.
I'll eat
Like
worms.
that's the thing. Like I'm not even trying to be combative about it. Just being odd or honest. It's like, well, yeah, but are worms good? Like I've never tried worms. I've heard they taste like bacon.
Yeah.
And if we aren't talking about some street worms, like, man, I'm just saying, like, because I assume that once you cook them, they don't still look like worms. They look like Indian food, just a pile of goo that's delicious.
Yeah.
But, know, I could be wrong.
I'm sure you could deep fry one of those suckers and it's tolerable. I got a batter you could hit a worm.
Yeah, no, I mean, like if you cover it with fish batter, I'm probably going to enjoy it. It's like, oh, is that like, did you fry it in the same oil as the catfish? I'm in.
Look, you tempura batter it, put a little green onion on top, give me some sweet chili sauce, and say it's whatever. I'll be like, all right, that was the best calamari I've ever had, and they'll be like, that was worms.
Government trying to get us to eat mealy worms too. I've thought about this particular subject because I'm not going to disagree with you on that one, Princess Warrior. What I would say though is like once again, I'm not food adverse, so to me, if they taste good, that's cool. The idea that they're trying to be like, we have to alter everything totally so people just don't eat meat.
Yeah.
I don't even think They can want that and try it all they want. I don't believe that's going to happen.
When I was a kid, I noticed, maybe it's because I was a kid, but I noticed a lot more crickets. And since I was a kid, it became hella popular in America to maybe try to eat some crickets.
Yeah.
Are we eating all our crickets?
I don't know, but I know that in Mexico that cricket tacos have been around for a long time.
A very long time. That's
Yeah,
a good,
I mean,
a good time too.
You know.
I'll eat a cricket too. I'm not opposed to mealy worms if that's what works.
So yeah, no, like the idea of eating bugs and worms definitely sounds like sounds gross as shit. But my question is, how were they prepared? How did they taste? And how much chocolate have you dipped them in?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, again, the herb out, a little green onion on top.
but also, like, don't try and deny me my steak. I'm gonna go hunt. I'm definitely, as soon as I get the ability to become an Arizona resident, I'll then probably put in for the lotto to try and get a javelina tag.
You can't outlaw beef. Here's the thing: I can't eat just Beyond Beef. I will barbecue my neighbor's ass flat. I'm gonna have steak, and it's gonna be good.
I'm not interested in these meat substitutes, right?
Yeah.
Like these, just fix what you're serving me in some way that's good. Don't give me a fake turkey.
Well, that's kind of how that's
How do you feel about cloned meat?
How do I feel about what?
The cloned or the printed meat?
It would depend on like what the source is per se, but I'm still a little nervous about the idea of eating a cloned
Yeah, it freaks me
thing.
out.
You got me? I believe that there's a greater possibility for transgenic modification via eating because it's been demonstrated in mammals. And so I don't think it's a good idea to absolutely normalize such a homogenous food stuff. I think in many ways that just opens us up for more access to disease. That's my thought on it. I'm not a professional or in medicine.
straight up.
You know,
No, absolutely.
you know, so like getting back, like cloned meat, I don't want it. Like if people want it, not gonna say they shouldn't be able to eat it. I'm definitely trepidatious about the whole thing, you know.
I'll try it, but here's my problem again. If the resources to get to a substitute outweigh what you like, the amount of resources it took to get the original, I don't really fucking want it.
Well, I
Like,
want the variance
yeah.
of natural product, right? Even
Yeah.
like I don't want to eat the same chicken over and over, even though I know that's what they want. Like I want every chicken to be a little different, so my body gets exposed to all those different things. As crazy as that sounds, I don't want my body to only know how to do one damn
That
thing.
is a good point.
Hey, thank you, Unholy Kev. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it, man.
much. Hey, thank you for watching us on Twitch.
Well,
too.
like,
That's
and
really
I think that
appreciated.
super homogenous diets are actually probably not good for people. I also,
Can't
you know,
be, yeah.
I don't know how good it is to eat 15,000 cows at one time when you eat ground beef by the same logic, because you're mixing so many different organisms together, even though they're the same type. But I don't see any evidence. I don't see any evidence that it's bad. There are people who say that red beef gives you cancer, and that may be a reason why. So
It's
who knows?
Probably bad for you, but fucking delicious. But fucking delicious. I'm not giving up.
You know, most of it has to do in this case with the processing. If you were getting the same thing from a local farm, you don't have these issues.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's very true.
Hey, you know, you talk about tobacco, right?
Yeah.
I think that the rise in tobacco had a lot more to do with the additives.
Oh yes.
And not nearly as much to do with actually smoking just cured tobacco that is raw cured tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
Though I'm sure there is a correlative increase in cancer cases because you're inhaling smoke.
Changing from cigarettes with additives and fiberglass filters and shit like that, I definitely noticed a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was also a withdrawal.
Yeah.
And it's not just habitual. There was a physical. I think it was the additives too. Like it had to have been something.
Yeah, no,
Somebody
I
put
think,
something-
well, your body's expecting those additives, man. It could be nothing but conditioning.
So I don't remember what fucking show I was watching, but somebody took a bite of something delicious and said, "Oh my god, what is that made of? Cigarettes?" It's the most addictive thing I've ever fucking tried. What is it made of? Cigarettes?
It's just so gross.
Those are
Yeah, and why Diet Coke is worse for you than the real thing? Yeah, no, I'm not like, and it doesn't have any, like, they've got studies out now that show that it basically seems to increase your chance of diabetes.
Yeah.
Over just taking in all the sugar for some reason,
Well,
or
and
at least be equally correlative.
If you were to follow the instructions on the can, yeah, but here's the thing, the way Coca-Cola, Mountain Dew, any of these like high sugary caffeinated beverages are designed are to make you want to crack another one.
Oh, dude, yeah, they don't solve your thirst other than for a moment. Like I can drink 5 Cokes in the amount of time I would drink 1 glass of water.
They're designed to make you overconsume it.
Yeah.
And that's where the diabetes is coming from, is from overconsumption and the design of that. Like
Well, that and like in the case of Diet Coke, you're taking ant killer as a sweetener.
Mountain Dew and Doritos, it's like the same it's like Lay's and Coke or whatever getting together and literally making 2 products that feed each other.
Yeah.
They know that both people, like the South in particular, pair those all the time, and over time they've upped the sweetness of Mountain Dew.
Oh, I can't tolerate it. I could drink it when I was younger, but now I cannot tolerate
It's
it.
functionally syrup meant to make you want another Dorito.
Yeah, basically to offset the amount of yeah.
So you have this, and then Doritos got saltier or spicier, or they got different variations
To
of
cut
flavor.
through the sweet.
To cut through the sweet. It's a fucking the chip and soda game. They're working together.
Yeah, no, and you know, like I don't like I do drink energy drinks. They're terrible for you, and I shouldn't, but I do. They got that hook in me. But for the most part, I avoid classic just soda. Man, it only makes me thirsty. It doesn't make me feel good.
It's one of my favorite things in the world. I feel infinitely better when I'm not drinking it. When I do drink, it's in my mind. It's a comfort fucking drink. So I try to limit myself nowadays. If I have a case, I try to not have a case afterward. Because you feed me.
Oh, yeah.
It'll get to where I just keep a case around.
No, totally.
Like, and because my natural state again is snacks in front of a project.
Right.
Like,
Well, no, and I'm the same way. So I'm always, when I'm in that state of hyperfocus and doing that, I'm teetering on the side of my blood sugar crashing sometimes.
constantly having to re-up it, and then when you have these things that are designed to crash and make you over,
Yeah.
next thing you know, at the bottom of a case of soda, you've eaten an entire family bag of fucking potato chips.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fucking, I'm overweight again.
Yeah. No,
That's how it goes for me
I've
anyway.
just eaten a bag of sugar, basically.
Yeah, my body's gonna, your body's gonna metabolize all that starch and shit into fucking sugar. But speaking of personal health, mine's feeling a little rough. I say we take the sucker on down. It's been a good fucking tattered map. I wanted to go a little bit longer, but we had a good long chit chat. And we could maybe, if you got some time, we could hit up Empire, have some dinner, hang out.
Yeah, I can do that.
You crossing animals over there? She plays Animal Crossing, which again,
Yeah, well, we don't have to go this moment, you know. Like in terms of like let the lady enjoy her game. She's had a day.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. Like we're gonna.
I'm good.
We're gonna
ready
be
to
chilling.
go.
Well, no, I didn't mean like. That's not why I was looking at you. I'm more in England to talk about Animal Crossing because I forget what it's about, and then my brain says the words Animal Crossing, and what I want to say to the person playing it is, you crossing some animals, which then leads my brain to think, you getting foul on, you fucking mean mugging animals? You fucking shoulder checking some donkeys, dude? What is the game you're playing? How do you play this game? What is this game? I don't know anything about the game. I don't think about Animal Crossing, but I assume you bully penguins and shit. Like you cross animals. Like you look at them crossways. But you know what I'm saying? Like you give them the mean southern mug. Press A to mean bug. Press B to fucking shoulder check. Press D to stick just the tip of your foot out enough to trip them, but not to fall, just enough to give them the two-step.
Oh, that maneuver. The one where you catch their ankle as they're moving.
You know they're going to catch themselves.
I'm not good at that. I'm good at having it done to me, though.
Pinball friend throw his shit out when someone did that to him in school. Like you saw some like a muscle throw
That's
out.
like Greg Grinder's move, dude.
It's so weird.
Like Greg is just like the king of throwing that one on somebody.
Someone's getting just straight face to fucking high school cold, like whatever that shit is, marble floor, like cold school tile.
Oh.
He just,
Oh.
but you could see the spasm like work from his ankle, like up his thing, and his back just said no.
Dude,
Boom.
that's how Sistema works. It's a martial art of nothing but that.
It's like, My pinky! I just shit myself. It's getting thrown around. Oh, man. But yeah, that's it. You crossing animals, man. That's all I can think of it when I see her playing it. Or when she's like, yes. I'm like, when she says yes, what I imagine is she's just pushed over a cow. It's just a cute little... And I look over at the game. It's a cute little person running around an island and stuff. But, you know.
Try to avoid Soylent Green. Yes.
Oh, yeah. We don't want to eat people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not... Yeah, I don't even drink the stuff.
I'd play Atari in a bubble, though.
Pardon?
In Soylent Green. I like playing Atari in a bubble.
Yeah,
I like playing Atari
definitely.
in a bubble.
Look, I just want to know, when do we get to go see some rollerball games? I want to see James Caan being ultra violent.
We were promised so much shit by this point in our history. Like, we should be watching death matches in cars. We should full on have actual Squid Game.
Look, I should be watching death matches in cars at night in the hotel part of Westworld. Like,
That's the sleazy part of murderous entertainment. Like, that's like the monster truck rallies of,
yeah.
of our futurescape. Or like, Death Race 2023 is at the fucking Pontiac Silverdome. I guess I'll go. I guess. Skip Evil might get blown up, and it's like a clone of Vin Diesel. It's like a really bad clone of Vin Diesel.
It's a clone of a clone.
It hit the side of the fucking tank. It's like smushed.
I just wanted to say hi to Lux too, really quick.
Oh, hey, what up, Allie? I'm not sure if she has her Discord in.
You've been hiding.
You've been helloed.
Hi.
She says hello. She says hello back.
All right. Well, that's about it.
Crossing.
I think you guys were gonna get offline. I just wanted to say hey.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're good again. I'm wrapping up real slow. Likes. I like that we're going longer with the tattered map, and we're, you know. I'm gonna be honest. I'm also need some time to talk to special guests and just digest this motherfucking Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, guys,
shit,
you know, I'm
because-
sorry I pulled my normal thing. I was planning on showing up today to talk about the guy who probably killed Jimi Hendrix and stole most of his money and was also an MI6 spy.
Oh,
who
that'll
was
be a
his
good
manager.
Wow.
And so I spent a fair amount of time researching that, and then last night, like I always seem to do, last night, the night before, somewhere around there, I got over on this thing and was like, oh shit, well, I guess I'm working hard for 2 days.
Yeah.
But I've got the back end on the other guy, because yeah, I definitely like to tell that story, but it was one that was like, you know, especially based on how long the day went. I think I might knock that one out in like 35 minutes and need more info. What would you notice?
Is Omen Press still running here in Tucson?
Oh,
Sorry, I just saw on this. We were talking about the author Walter Howard Kirby, Walter Bowarts, earlier, and I saw just real quick on his thing. There's an Omen Publishing Press, like metaphysical books, but it's out of the town I'm in.
I don't know. Just immediately looking stuff up, it looks like most of it was early 70s.
I'll tell you one that is weird right now. We have an unusual amount, in my opinion, of people with the Messiah complex. They got that Jesus syndrome. They're out there just fucking. They got Jerusalem syndrome.
It's because in a world where we're all playing video games all the time, most people are gonna be conditioned to think they're player one.
In that their story has to be grandiose.
Yeah.
And that their life story is going to be grandiose.
Like
And
it's a
oftentimes
different move from
stories-
aspiring to television, because now you're in control and not a recipient.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part. Like, that's a symptom of Western culture as related to our own culture as it was,
Yeah.
and the focus on the individual anyway, combined with probably too much time spent in an environment where you're projecting yourself on other characters. Now, and I say that in a time where we've all got a lot of damn problems, you know, and so maybe that time could be spent better. But it goes back sort of to the Doritos thing. They make it more addictive than a slot machine. So I'm not judging anybody here.
No.
Like, I also spend a lot of time playing video games.
I will say, if you just hop on the street, think you're Jesus, and are like wearing some robes or something, yelling at people on the street corner, I want to X-ray you for some bottle-shaped things near your skull so bad.
Oh, now, yeah.
And now
yeah.
I cannot, like, poor James Pettit. That story in particular, like, got me because the physical condition of the man.
Yeah, no, that dude was wrecked. You know, he just wouldn't die.
And then actively awake during surgical procedures, telling the doctor to go further.
Yeah, like, no, you're not gonna put me asleep.
And you're not gonna hurt me.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking I can't even feel half of my body.
Yeah.
It's just that one got me. Like, this is a.
Well, and I'll say that it sounds like he was feeling things in places you'd assume would be numb, though I am no medical expert, so I'm sure I could be wrong on that.
It's like he died for our sins, for our South American drug problem.
Yeah, one of many.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's, yeah. And, like, the amount of times he's busted as a pilot smuggling drugs from, like, a different country.
Yeah.
Is insane. And then the fact that it's always like the plane went down or he landed somewhere that the government wasn't expecting.
Right.
And that's
Well, it sounds like
happened.
he was. You know, there's a theory about how Oswald was working for the FBI and got patsied in like
people
that.
like that, you know what mansion they're chilling in and what bitches they're banging.
Yeah.
And what kind of, like, this guy is odd. Like, there's something.
Well, keep in mind,
Even up with,
what
like,
was
with
he
his
doing
relationship to being a
beforehand?
pilot.
He said his job beforehand was parapsychologist.
Yeah. Dude,
So he's right here in the same time period that all this stuff is happening with Walter Bowarts in the New Age movement, because parapsychology, though it originally starts off as, quite frankly, a legitimate science, as near as science understood it at the time, it's considered pseudoscience now. But it only became considered pseudoscience sometime around the 80s. Right,
true.
sometime
Basically,
it became pseudoscience sometimes around the time that our psychic spy program started leaking.
Yeah, that's true. When things are when that stuff started, when Unsolved Mysteries airs, because they aired all those early remote viewing things where people have, like, never a story as severe as James Pettit, in my opinion, but some stories that are comparable.
Right.
On Unsolved Mysteries. Like, I grew up watching things, you know what I mean, where it's like, oh, well, an alien or the government put this thing in my arm or in my head.
Well,
or my leg.
let's say that they were doing a ton of that to people up till about 74.
Yeah,
right. Then there would be a lot of people in the 80s who were in the middle of psychological breakdown as their multiple personalities and the bonds that held them apart dissolved.
Yeah.
And they psychically reintegrated and became aware of the things that happened to them, or only became aware of levels of it. So let's say that, like, you've got those 4 zombie levels, right?
Yeah.
And let's say an experience is coded with 4 different experiences for you. So they run you through conditioning, and this whole set of things that you do is in one sense tied to aliens. And in another sense tied to, like, a government agency. And in another sense tied to another government agency. So that one of them sounds absolutely fucking cuckoo banana balls.
Insane,
and the other 2 sounds like maybe they got somewhere.
Lord. Good Lord.
Right? I think they've been weaponizing the UFO mythos the whole time. Now, guys, I don't know if there's aliens. Like, I tend to believe that no matter, even if you want to say there is an extraterrestrial source for it, I'm guessing that extraterrestrial source was originally terrestrial, and most bizarre would be that it's the remnants of an ancient high civilization that was originally based within our solar system.
Ooh.
So they're not having to make any sort of intergalactic flight.
Ooh. Oh.
Or interstellar flight.
While we're here and talking about just things in the realm of espionage, people with multiple personalities, people who've been sheep dipped and things like that, there's a comic book run I want you to read. I haven't read it myself, but there's just so much here that feels like if you do dislike it, it's because you won't like the intelligence agency simping that's going on in the
right.
Which I don't know if that's there or not. But there's a run in DC Comics. It's called Grayson.
Right.
And it's Dick Grayson. He's no longer Nightwing. He's sheep dipped by fucking
Sheep dip.
sheep dipped.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's sheep dipped. I thought it was your sheep. Anyway, he's sheep dipped, and he's fucking he's a spy now.
Yeah.
He's a fucking spy now. Like that's there's a whole arc where Dick Grayson is up
When
to spy shit, and everyone thinks he's
when
dead.
was that arc?
It was during the New 52. I know that. So it was 5-6 years ago.
All right.
But the writer of it used to work for, I think, the CIA,
Well, those guys get a lot of jobs in media.
particularly writing fiction.
Yeah, writing Hey, E. Howard Hunt, 72 novels.
That's why I'm really interested to see what.
Oh, what about all the workers who built the dumbs and they off these guys? Maybe they offed them. Maybe they just slapped a new personality on. Like maybe they don't have psychic reintegration due to these bonds breaking because they get psychic maintenance ever so often because they're technical specialists.
Yeah.
And they're viewed as a piece of equipment.
If you're that high up in a government totem pole that you're the master of your own fleet of sleeper agents, you probably just retired. Too.
Oh, yeah.
If we're talking about those people, like the people who programmed other people.
Oh yeah, no, well they're not
They're probably
looking.
just retired.
Yeah, they're not looking to get rid of them. Like they're like, hey, go retire, go do your thing. You're obviously smart. Maybe you'll have other deep insights that you'll obviously share with us.
Here's a place
And
to
if
live.
we have anything we need for you to do, we'll call you.
Exactly. Well, let's put some beats on.
Yeah.
Let's chill.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sleeper agents and fucking all kinds of shit. Boom. Boom. You guys have a good one. It's been the Tattered Map. I'm Merc. This is a special guest. Thank you so much, special guest. Thank
Hey,
you
no
so
problem.
much, everybody else. Justin, Chief, Alley Cat, Erica. I see you all out there. Princess Warrior. Thank you for joining us. I don't think I've ever seen you before in the chat, Princess Warrior. Thank you for
Yeah,
joining
please keep
us.
coming back though.
Yeah, please.
We do this every Thursday with the Tattered Map and conspiracies in general.
In general, we sure do. And we're also just kind of open to conspiracy conversation most of the time.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys have a good one.